I visited Israel when I was 15, and I literally said, I'm going to find a way to serve in Israel. I always wanted to fly. When I joined the Marine Corps, I told the guys, hey, wake me up 10 minutes early. I got to put on my tefillin. I'd been flying the F-18 for 2 or 3 years. We ended up leaving a week after 9/11, which I think was Rosh Hashanah that day. I remember who by sword, who by fire, who by water. I did 42 missions into Afghanistan, dropped a lot of bombs.
None of your business, Ushy. None of your business, Michael.
It's the None of Your Business podcast, hosted by Michael and Ushy.
Welcome back, everybody, to another uplifting episode of the None of Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Michael Greenfield. With me, of course, is co-host Ushy Schwartz. And today we have a guest of all guests, someone who I've been waiting for a very, very long time. And it's not you in particular. I didn't really know you. I was just asking my friends, I need a pilot. I need someone who's an active pilot, someone who's in the air that can tell me what the heck is going on in Newark and JFK, what's happening with the FAA. Tell me about TSA. Teach me about taking off and landing. I'm so excited to have you here. And I have to tell you that, just for the sake of everyone knowing, welcome to the program, Joshua Zager. Is it Josh?
Josh, yeah.
Josh. All right, Josh.
Thank you.
Welcome. I really appreciate you being here. And just want to say thank you again to all our subscribers. I'm talking to the crowd now, the listeners. Thank you to all the comments. We're getting more love than hate.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing okay.
The paradigm has shifted. It seems to be that people are catching on and people are becoming fans, so it's nice.
Yeah.
We'll see how long it lasts, but we'll enjoy it while it's going in that direction.
We're growing. It's good. It's good. We're heading in a good direction, I think. So, Josh, we have this little thing called ChatGPT says what about you, and that's how I begin to get to know who you are. And first, I want a huge shout out to Chaim. Chaim, who was on the podcast here, was a soldier in Gaza. He was actually one of the teammates that were responsible for taking down Sinwar. And he was on our podcast with Akiva Shapiro, who's a nursing home operator during the day and a soldier in Israel at night.
Hero at night.
Literally. Those two guys were on our podcast, and I keep seeing Chaim, and he tells me, you want a pilot? I got you a pilot. Got you the pilot of all pilots. Not only is he a pilot today, but he was a pilot then, and he's just like, that's what your world is. And I'm excited to read this. I don't think the crowd is ready for this, and you'll confirm this is the first time you've ever been on a podcast?
Yes, first time.
I don't know how anyone hasn't, grabbed you and put you on a... I'm honored. Yeah. I really am. You went from flying F-18 Hornets over Afghanistan to wearing a pilot's wing for a major commercial airline. Talk about switching gears. That's what it's saying over here. So I guess you started off in the
Marine Corps.
In the Marine Corps, yeah. Okay. And now you're working for...
United Airlines.
United Airlines. I have a lot of listeners that are listening and like, United Airlines, wow, can I be a buddy? Can you get me a 1K? Can we get to global? And we'll get to that in a minute, but what was your career like in the beginning with Afghanistan? What's that about?
Well, I was a newly operational F-18 pilot in 2001. I'd been flying the F-18 for 2 or 3 years. I was assigned to a carrier, and we ended up leaving a week after 9/11 on the Roosevelt, and went pretty much straight to Afghanistan. We started the response to 9/11 in early October 2001, and we spent 5 months doing that, flying missions into Afghanistan.
Dropping bombs?
Yeah, I did 42 missions into Afghanistan, dropped a lot of bombs pretty much from the first mission to the end. Yeah, we were the response. The entire world wanted to do what I did, to be you all remember 9/11, so everyone wanted to go, especially growing up around here and knowing people that were in the towers. It was
personal to you.
It was personal, yeah. A guy I played baseball with in high school, I wrote his name on my first bomb, and his family was next neighbors to my family growing up in Little Silver, town next to where I live now, and played baseball with him and wrote his name on the bomb and took a picture and sent it to his mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm blown away. I'm sorry. I have to take a step back. I'm saying
he's dropping a bomb on us right now. He's just like starting out, so like he goes very right good. Into it. It's like this is heavy artillery right here.
Ushy, very good. I missed you.
Thank you, Mike. I missed you too.
I have to put this ChatGPT paper away.
Yeah,
I'm already like I gotta slow down, and like Ushy always likes to say, whoa, let's take a step back.
Start from the beginning. We gotta know how this starts. How did you end up in a fighter jet across the world? Like, now you're sitting here in a pod, like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
How did it get to this point?
It's been a good ride.
Where'd you grow up? Where are your parents from? Let's start literally from
my parents are from New Jersey and New York.
Cool.
I think my mom grew up spent a few years in Teaneck, which is pretty near here, right? My dad grew up in Little Silver, which is the town next to where we live now. I always wanted to fly. My dad was in the Navy. He was a lawyer in the Navy, and when I was really young, we lived in Subic Bay in the Philippines, and the Officers Club beach was right next to the runway there. And some of my first memories when I was 3 or 4 years old was, Marine and Navy and jets coming into Subic Bay, coming back from Vietnam. Like they'd come down for R&R. The ship would come in, and before the ship pulls in, a lot of times the jets will fly off. So there's a lot of activity there at the Naval Air Station and at QB Point. And I used to watch these. I'd sit there on the beach and play in the surf and watch the planes come in the break to land. So I always wanted to do that.
You got the bug early.
Yeah, I used to put my dad had a hi-fi stereo, a Sony hi-fi that he got back then. I remember putting the headphones on and making my brother sit behind me. And, I'd play with the dials and pretend I was flying. My parents are very Zionistic. I visited Israel when I was 15 with a youth exchange with the Federation. And then the following summer, my synagogue had basically a scholarship program that my grandfather had helped set up, that anyone who wanted, it's kind of like a birthright for my local synagogue. If you wanted to go to Israel, you could go on the United Synagogue Youth, the USY summer trip. But I was like, I've been there, done that. I already been to Israel. But that year was the second year that they were doing a Poland-Israel program, which was a week in Poland and then 5 weeks in Israel. And I said, well, if I can do that, then I'll do that. That'll be a good experience. After the week in Poland, the second to last day was in Auschwitz, and I literally said, I'm going to find a way to serve in Israel. The first summer I was in Israel with that youth exchange, I met a lot of kids who were going to the Army, and I was just coming back here to finish high school, so I kind of was exposed to what Israel needs to do to exist, and basically I decided. I think looking back, maybe this is just a little bit of nostalgia, but I'm pretty sure, like walking out of Auschwitz, I'm like, a different person. I got to serve somehow. I got to do something physically to defend the Jewish people. And so I kind of dropped the idea of flying. That first summer I was there, I think the tour guide knew a paratrooper that was getting his beret at Ammunition Hill, because we happened to be at Ammunition Hill when the paratroopers were coming up to get their berets. And so I kind of said, you know what? I didn't know Hebrew. I learned how to read for my bar mitzvah. So it was kind of a pretty big leap. But I said, I could probably figure out enough Hebrew to be an infantryman. So I said, I'm going to be a paratrooper, and then set about trying to do that. My route to learning Hebrew was spending a year at Hebrew University. So I said, I'm going to try and stay on track with like a normal progression, get my first degree, and go to college, but then I'm going to do my junior year at Hebrew U. But my sophomore year in college, the Marine Corps came to my campus with a helicopter, a little civilian helicopter, but they had a reserve Cobra pilot who was flying students around to recruit. And I literally got out of class and saw the Marines there. And I didn't know the Marines landed on ships, and that's what my dream was, to land on ships. So I walked up to him and said, do you have any information on the Navy? Because maybe someday I'd want to land on, join the Navy to fly. And he said, well, we do that. We land on ships too. You want to go flying right now? So I threw my books under the door and signed a little release. It was like half a slip of paper, and went flying with this Marine pilot. And when I came back from a 20-minute flight or so, the next guy wasn't there, so I went again. And I grew up sailing. I grew up surfing and sailing and windsurfing. That was just, what I did growing up on the Jersey Shore. So I could fly the helicopter right out of the gate. And the guy came back and told the recruiter, sign me up. And he kept calling me, and I kept saying thanks, but I'm going to join the IDF. Thanks but no thanks. Thanks for the flight, but I'm going to the IDF. And even when I was in Israel, every once in a while my mom would say the Marines called again. But that was out in Pennsylvania, and I did the Israeli Army, came home, and basically I had I had my first degree, but I always thought I'll figure out what I'm going to do next when I'm in the Army. But when you're in the IDF, especially in the combat arms of the IDF, you're just kind of, you're always hot, so you're trying to figure out how to cool off. You're always cold, so you're trying to figure out how to warm up. You're always hungry, so you're trying to figure out how you're going to get a minute to eat. You're always tired, so you're going to, try, how am I going to sleep for 10 minutes? You don't really think the next stage. I got out of the Army, and
how long were you in the Army?
2 years.
So you're there for 2 years.
Yeah, I was 21 when I got drafted. So.
Were you an Israeli citizen?
No.
You weren't?
No, I was. So
you enlisted. You got drafted?
Yeah, I was technically drafted. But my dad was a lawyer, so he got me with an immigration attorney. He was worried about me, So technically, I made Aliyah, and I was drafted. And I'm not Israeli at all. But I went to serve as a Jew, and I was very cognizant. I never wanted to live there. I love where I live now. I'm back where I always wanted to be home where I am. But I wanted to go defend the state of Israel, and and the Jewish people. And it was an amazing thing to do, especially now in the last couple of years. I can't imagine had I not done that, how I would have, when it was my time, I did my time, and it's
you feel like you contributed,
very
you did
much
your
so.
part.
A tiny little link in a very big chain.
I have to say first, on behalf of everyone listening and myself, thank you for being such a person that just puts themselves out there. Like it's very, very unique what you're saying. Very, very unique. I know a lot of people that served in the army because they were passionate about Israel, and most of them stayed in Israel or became Zionistic to the point where that was their goal. This is just a young Jewish man who got inspired and had an upbringing and the value system that I just want to serve my country. I just want to do
Right.
This is what I'm blown away.
I was lucky enough to, when I came home, I never thought I could do both. But
Why did you think of flying in Israel, by the way, instead of?
So I barely knew Hebrew. I could tell you funny stories about like the Lishkat, the draft office, and
of things you said.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it.
There was like a 20. So I literally landed on a Thursday, and I got a one-way ticket on El Al because I made Aliyah. I landed on a Thursday night on the late flight, Thursday at 4 o'clock or whatever when that flight gets there. And by the time I got to the kibbutz, it was late, and it was a religious kibbutz. So when I woke up at noon on Friday and said, "Hey, I need to get to the draft office," they said, "Easy, Tiger, relax. I could wait till Sunday." So on Sunday, I went up to Tiberias and went to the draft office with my 2-day-old 2 dots of hoot and said, "Draft me." And they said, "Easy, Tiger, come back in a few weeks." I got a letter in a few weeks, and I think on the second visit is when they give you a Hebrew test, and it was 20 vocabulary words. So here I am, like a 21-year-old college graduate with an 18 or 19-year-old Mashaki, assessing my Hebrew level, and it was 20 words, like higher second, third level, vocabulary, and I was like, at the 10th one, I didn't know. So I said to her, "Just stop. I can't even get a 50. And she said, "No, Army regulations, I got to give you all 20. And number 17 was ambulance. So I knew one out of 20. And I said, look at me. And at the time, it was 93. And I had heard that the Army Ulpanim were just full of Russian immigrants. And that the only thing you learn in Ulpan is Russian. You don't learn Hebrew in Ulpan, in an Army Ulpan. So I said, "Look at me. I came all the way from New Jersey to be a paratrooper, not to sit in an Army Ulpan and learn Russian," and she passed me. So I went straight to the Bakum, and at the time I was the only paratrooper who was doing what I was doing. I didn't speak Hebrew for months. I didn't speak English for months when I was the only guy doing it. Wow. And then I became a commander in the paratroopers. So and I went back to training the next year's August draft. I was a commander in the basic training and the intermediate and advanced training.
So you passed the IDF process, right?
Yeah.
Meaning you're about to jump to your next stage of life.
Right.
Just have to ask you before you move past it. Give me one memory of the IDF that you can tell people that are thinking of going to the IDF, or somebody that's saying like I'm afraid for my son or daughter to go to the IDF, because that's a topic that happens in our communities a lot.
I tell people who I taught to fly, you don't want to do this, you need to do it. So it is like any good, hard experience, if you're the right person for it, if you have the right mindset for it, it'll make you into the most incredible person. But if you're not, it'll break you. I used to tell my Marines, the right kind of alloy under the most pressure becomes steel, and the wrong materials under pressure just is destroyed. So that's what the IDF is. Nothing really has been difficult since the IDF. It's especially what the infantry. If you can lead in the infantry, if you can not just function but lead in the infantry, you can do anything in life.
Wow. So you're coming back from the IDF.
Yeah.
You have all this energy inside you, all this experience,
leadership
capabilities now. You've learned a lot, of course.
Right.
What's next for you?
Well, I got back to the state. Oh, so one interesting thing is I was able to get hired to be a madrich for the same USY program.
As a leader, as a counselor?
As a counselor. Yeah. So when I got out of the Army, there was a lot of terrorist attacks almost every week. I put in a request to get out a month early so I could be a madrich. I did 1 month less than 2 years. And the way you did that was this Mashaki Tash, I couldn't write. By that time I was a commander, so I could speak Hebrew. But I couldn't write. And now you can just talk in your phone and, almost perfect spelling. But she came down. I was with my soldiers at jump school. My soldiers were going through jump school. So I wasn't going to that summit. We were down at jump school for a few weeks. And she came down so that I could dictate the letter to her that she'd put up the chain of command. I dictated this letter to her on Thursday. And then she said, all right, cool. I'm going home for Shabbos. I got a I'm going home straight from here. I got a humshu. She wasn't going back to the base for Friday. But Sunday I'll go in and type it up. On Sunday she was in the terrorist attack. The guy blew up the device, and then he rushed in with another device, like as if he was going to help. And she was one of the people that rushed in to help. And she was blown up with a second charge. But they never found her bag for a while, so I had to rewrite that letter. And I got out a month early, and I went and was a madrich, which really closed the circle.
Well, like student became the teacher, and full circle.
Having served in the IDF, being a paratrooper, done a couple frontline duties in different places, it was just amazing.
I'm sorry, I can't jump past the IDF still. How many jumps did you do?
I did 9, which is considered a lot. I did my 5 to qualify, and then I did a 6 with my. I got taken out to be a commander. But I went back and jumped with my original unit as like a end of Masul fun jump.
So did you ever have to jump in combat?
No, the IDF, not since 56 has done it.
Okay, great.
It's not that.
Oh, so
and then I did 3 with my soldiers.
Training and stuff?
Yeah, 3 training.
Yeah, I drove by at 3 o'clock in the morning once towards Yam HaMelech. I was going to the Dead Sea for an escape with my family, actually. And on the way, we look up and we see hundreds of paratroopers landing all at once. Talking about 2 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of a field near the Dead Sea.
East of Beersheba.
Yeah. And we couldn't believe what we were seeing. And we pulled over.
Yeah.
And we watched it happen. And a lot of soldiers backed us off because it was training, of course. They do it on purpose, the tests at 2 o'clock in the morning or at night?
Yeah, the second or the third, fourth, and fifth jump, I think, were at night. Maybe just the fourth and fifth, you do it at night. It's a little bit different than jump at night.
And you're jumping with also hundreds of people like at the same time?
Yeah.
It's done on purpose that way?
Yeah, it's to get a nice tight, you want the unit to be together. You don't want a big spread.
Wow.
So it's jump. And we train, that's what a lot of the training is.
Have you skydived in your life before?
No, I'll jump out of an airplane for Israel, but I'm not going to do it for a thrill. No, it's jumping out of a good airplane is a bad idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm done with that. I'm good.
It's not operational. It's not but if you can get yourself to jump out of an airplane, especially the second time, it's probably the closest thing to combat that you can kind of simulate. You feel very vulnerable when you're up there, and to just do what you need to do and operate and execute what you're trained to do, then you're probably going to be able to operate in combat too. So that's why Israel still does it.
Got it. That makes sense, even though they don't need to use it, but that's the process.
Right.
Okay, makes a lot of sense.
It makes, there are those who've jumped out of airplanes and those who haven't, and it changes you a little bit, especially when you have to operate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move past this part of your life. Let's keep going, yes. Because there's so many layers to you. I love it.
Yeah.
Like I could do a whole podcast about the IDF. I can keep going, and I want to, but there's so much more to you that I want to learn.
Yeah.
So, back from the IDF, finished doing this rotation. You went to work. What did you do then?
No. I got home and my little brother was at the Naval Academy, and I got home and went to go see him. He was in a leadership role, and it was an amazing day. And then I stopped by the bookstore, and outside the bookstore in Annapolis is an F4, which is a Vietnam era fighter on a stick, on a display, an actual F4. And I got out and I was like, you know what? It doesn't hurt to ask. So I came back home and I got a haircut and went to the enlisted recruiter in the kind of the downtown by us, which is called Red Bank. And I asked the staff sergeant, hey, is this even possible? I served in the IDF. Can I still get a commission and be a fighter pilot in the Marines? And he after a minute trying to sign me up to be a reservist or something. I said, no, I got one question. Can I still do this? I know all about the program. I was being recruited in college. Is it even possible? I never thought it was possible. Is it possible? So he called up the officer recruiter who was up here where the Turnpike and the Parkway come together. And it was like, I was across the desk from this staff sergeant in Red Bank, and he said, hey, sir, I got a guy here who wants to be a pilot. He just got out of the IDF, wants to know if it's possible. And the guy was like, shut the F up. I could hear. He's like, no, sir, I'm not effing with you. And I'm like, he's like, no, sir, he's not fat. What are your SAT scores? No, sir, he's not dumb. And he's like, I got to talk to him. So he gave me the phone, and he's like, come on up here. I need to meet you. So I went up and met the guy. And he was a gung-ho infantry officer, a recon Marine who had been through Ranger school with the Army, and gung-ho, but he'd missed the first Gulf War. He was in training in 91, and this is like 4 years later, and he had never done anything real. And here I am, a guy who just landed in his lap, who'd been I did 2 stints in Lebanon in the security zone, and I'd been in Hebron after Baruch Goldstein, and done some real stuff. He was just picking my brain about operational kind of tactical stuff for a long time. And then he's like, I want to put you in the Marine Corps. And I said, hey, I haven't looked at a book in 3 years. Let me do some studying. So I studied for a week and came back, and I took the test and I aced it. And this is in mid 90s when the military was shrinking because of the post-Cold War peace dividend. But New Jersey had 2 flight slots for 2 Marine pilots, and I got one. So in a couple days, it was approved. I'd done the security questionnaire because I told him let's make sure. I did the security questionnaire my first time doing SF-86 security questionnaire, and and then I had that bird in hand, and I was like, let me think about it, because I had a couple months before I had to show up to Quantico, and I went and visited my grandparents. I hadn't seen them in 4 years, friends and stuff, and then I ended up saying, you know what, let me go try this Marine Corps thing out, and that turned into almost 20 years. It was everything about the Marine Corps just impressed me more every day. It's just a great organization. So
I love it. I got to do a pause again. I'm back at you now because first of all, I'm feeling that energy of being a 21-year-old. 21?
Yeah. At that point, I was 24.
I'm hanging out shooting pool with my friends, and my friend walks in the door, and he's like, "Okay, hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? Yeah, hey, how was your year or two? I've been in the IDF, about to go to the Marines." Like, wow, you're competition for me, by the way. At that point, so I'm like looking at you, and I'm imagining that's your space that you're living in. You're going to visit your grandparents. You're going to tell your family. I'd love to know the energy around your family at that point. Like, what's going on? They're allowing you to do this. They're supporting it. Like, we're finally getting you back, and now you're leaving us again.
Well, even when I went to join the IDF, I wasn't really asking my family. I like I said, I didn't want to do this. I needed to do it. I can't imagine not having served in the IDF after being in Auschwitz. For me personally, I had no choice. Even though I was definitely a unicorn back then. No one was doing it. I paved my own way to do it, but I told my parents. I remember thinking I had some very close friends who were supporting me and stuff, but actually they had been on the trip to Poland in '88 with me. Those close friends. So but my parents, I remember thinking, you know what, I'll just tell them when I have to tell them, and it is what it is. When I got back from the IDF, I think they were pretty much not surprised. They knew me my whole life, so it was it wasn't a thing for my parents,
Right. So basically, if you had to do it, they had to accept it.
Yeah.
Which is
and
nice.
My parents, my dad always says, I'm living his dream. He
nice.
flew in the Navy for a little bit. He was an ROTC in school, and it was Vietnam, and he had met my mom, wanted to get married, so life expectancy of naval aviators in Vietnam wasn't good, and he's, I think I'll be a lawyer instead. And both my grandfathers served in World War II. One of them was in flight training until he was transferred to the infantry to get ready for the invasion of Japan. But he had done some flying for the Army Air Corps.
So they're actually really proud of you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
which is really nice.
Yeah, nothing but pride, I don't think.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I can't imagine, now that I have kids, and I can't imagine what they were going through. I was cognizant of it in a theoretical way.
Yeah, for those that are wondering, his daughter is in the audience.
Yeah. And in a theoretical, I was very cognizant of what I was putting them through, but just in a theoretical, when you're 21, you don't know what it's like to be a parent.
So I want to go back to that interview where you're meeting this person, and he's learning about your history in Lebanon, which I didn't know about because we skipped the whole discussion of the IDF, and about your tactical, procedures.
Right.
What did you tell him that impressed him?
I think if you're in the military, you can cut to the chase, and it's very, if you have that kind of stuff in common, which we had a lot of stuff in common, but I forget what I probably told him. The stuff, we did ambushes.
That's what I'm talking about. I'd like to hear that lingo. What does it mean, an ambush? What do you mean? You're telling him you're trained for an ambush. So
in the middle, in the mid 90s, Israel was still maintaining the security zone, which is a buffer. It's basically the second ridge line north of the border, because the PLO and then the Hezbollah were able to shoot into Israel. So if you have line of sight, especially, you've all been to the Golan, they had line of sight right into the farmers' field, the kibbutz fields down below, and the tractors had to be armored, and they planted the eucalyptus trees along the road so that they could get around without getting shot at. So in order to keep that from happening, there was a security zone. We pushed them 2 ridge lines north of the border, which meant if we controlled that second ridge line, we could have line of sight into the next valley, which it's 10 to 15 kilometers north.
Which gives you a technical advantage.
Of course,
yeah, right.
The terrain. So, and then Israel had, probably pretty primitive electronic surveillance, but the terrain, there were known entry points that Hezbollah had probed and found out how we can get through Israel's defenses. So in order to cover that, we would lay ambushes. We had observation posts. My second time in Lebanon, I was in Lebanon at an observation post where the Litani River flows south and then bends to the west to go out to the Med, and right at that, we called it the elbow of the Litani River. We had an observation post right there that we maintained. There were 14 of us, and it's almost like being on a ship in the middle of the ocean because all that terrain up there was considered Hezbollah controlled, and so every time we had to resupply a convoy come up, it had to be opened up and cleared during daylight hours. And so we're up there, 14 of us. We had artillery support and air support, but we were 14 people in Hezbollah territory. When the sun set, we were on high alert. Everyone was in the position was awake an hour before sunrise or first light, and we were all ready for. It was a very operation. We couldn't take our shoes off. One person could have their shoe off at any one time. So one of the 14 of us, and it had to be during daylight hours. So if you were changing your socks, hey, I'm changing my socks. And we had about enough water to take a shower once a week or once every 10 days or whatever. And it was just very operational. And then, I'd be up there, and then when it came time, we were up there for 4 months. When it was my time to come down, I might lay an ambush because, if you're going out for a couple of days, you kind of work hard the last couple of days because everyone knows you're going home to sleep for a couple of days. So pretty much you did an ambush or, at least a couple of patrols back to back to kind of pay for your time off. So I would do an ambush in Lebanon, come back before sunrise to the position, and then the convoy would take me back to the border with Israel, and I could be back in Tel Aviv, for lunch.
Wow.
Be on the beach in Tel Aviv for the afternoon.
That's a nice way to spend the end of the...
Yeah, it was like, so that kind of thing just blew his mind, I had called for fire once. We saw a Hezbollah truck that I was able to call the helicopter in, and here I'm just a young, I was only a sergeant.
And what happens? You call a helicopter in and... Yeah,
so we saw the Katusha truck, and we called the helicopter as a Cobra, and we called it in, and he was able to eventually see it and blew it up.
In front of you?
Across the river.
But you're seeing it happen, meaning so you're responsible for the defense, and you're seeing it happen right in front of you.
Yeah.
Right.
When the position we were in, when we put Givati had it before us, and they were attacked. The Hezbollah came up. They over the course of many weeks and months, maybe this old shepherd brought their gear into the olive or grove that was right underneath the position, and over weeks, this guy was just grazing his sheep supposedly, but on his donkey he had a piece of a Zager missile, a control box, and the missile itself, and then a 50 cal barrel and a 50 cal body for a machine gun. And they brought all this gear in there, and then this Hezbollah came up and put it together one night and attacked the position and killed the Givati. And when we came up, it was a couple weeks before we took it from them. It was very, very operational. And for a Marine officer who's just been through training, and he was a very successful Marine officer, and he was a captain who was recruiting for New Jersey. He was a recruiting officer for Marine officers for New Jersey, and but he never done anything real like that. So I just told him,
the average IDF soldier is seeing more action
Yeah.
than some of the high-end people in the
Yeah.
U.S. military,
Yeah.
because like you said, Israel's defending itself at all
Right.
times, and they're battling so many fronts as well. They're surrounded by enemies, so the casual soldier is seeing more action than
Right.
just most of the people in the military in 10, 20 years.
Right.
So
Like
they're
the
more
guy-
impressed by you, just this guy who just made his way from the IDF,
Right.
and he's showing up here at our front door.
Struck gold.
Yeah.
And he's he's got to pick your brain. He's got to see
Exactly.
what is it like, and
We
you're
know right
introducing
now
him
that-
to that.
I think it was on your podcast. The guy who killed Sinwar was a young commander trainee,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just the, someone who was in the Satmar Cheder, ended up learning all the tactics and brought that back with him. And
Chaim was one who told me that.
Yeah, and like you said, also just using that leadership skills. You're in a team of 14 people. You're the tender age of 19 or 20. You have to announce when you're taking your sock off.
Yeah.
Can you imagine any yeshiva bacher listening to this and thinking like, oh my God, like, you should.
This is quaint compared to what's going on in Gaza, right now.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
This is routine. But yeah, you can't, the experience, this generation of Israelis, every generation is amazing, but the stuff that they have to go through, the stuff that they do, what they're doing right now.
So you start in the Marines, right? That was, and you said 20 plus
ended
years.
Up being 20 years, yeah.
20 years in the Marines.
Which I was the last guy to ever thought I wanted to go fly jets off ships and then move on with my life.
Right.
But the Marine, like I said, the Marines just.
So what year you enlisted? What year was this?
I became an officer in 95. 96, January 96.
96. So I'm just thinking from 9/11 perspective, what we said earlier, right? How many years you're having to prepare and become who you are.
Yeah.
You're not knowing this is coming, but think back now.
No, it's crazy. I came, back in the day, it was like, remember the quaint old days before terrorism came to our shores. I figured I was done fighting terrorists. That's something Israel needs to do. Now I'm back. I thought I'd just be, I never thought I'd have to go to war for the United States. It's just, I thought I'd be, just peace, So I joined in 96, and it takes a while to become a pilot. In the Marines, you have to do about a year of training to become a Marine officer, which it's amazing training. Every Marine officer does everything.
You're talking about the guy with the big hat that's yelling at you, like that type of thing?
No,
training?
No, I never had to do that. But at first, I became a Marine officer. It takes about 10 weeks.
Okay.
And then you go through, we have the basic school, which is, you learn how to call for fire, artillery, you learn engineering, you learn offense, defense, in the infantry wise, offense, defense. You take classes on the Uniform Code of Military Justice, even though you're not going to become a lawyer, but we had lawyers in our class. You take Marine Corps officers basically go through Marine Corps 101 of all aspects of it, which makes it a little bit different. One, that takes about 6-7 months. You're with, when I'm called in to drop bombs for somebody, there's a good chance I know the guy or he knows someone that I know. So you feel that it's just like they feel that like we're one big team. So I did that, and then you go to Navy flight school. After you're done with that, so that took me about 2.5 years of flying to get to the F-18.
Oh.
And then about a year of learning the F-18 before I got to an operational squadron. And then I was in that operational squadron about a year before 9/11.
I see. So and just for the casual listener, which is myself, Navy, Marines, Army, the difference between them real quick is
the Marines are
the easy way to look at it.
Yeah. So we have the Department of the Navy, the Department of the Air Force, the Department of the Army, and now we have Space Force. We have the Coast Guard too. In the Department of the Navy is the Marine Corps, which most Americans don't realize. The Marine Corps is so prominent. We're tiny relative to other services, but we're in the Department of the Navy. So yeah.
And the Navy is responsible for?
The Navy is for sea dominance.
Got it.
But strictly speaking, the Navy kind of stays on ships, and the Marine goes ashore in what we call the littoral zone, like the first X amount of miles from the beach inland. That's what the Marine Corps controls.
So from your perspective, you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Right?
But where's the Air Force involved? Is the Air Force separate from the Navy?
Yes.
And you're not in the Air Force?
No, I was a pilot in the Marines, which means I'm a naval aviator.
Taking me back to when you were a teenager, that's when you saw the helicopter and you're like, oh, I could do both. Yeah. And that's what ended up happening for you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I didn't know the Marines had jets.
Right.
Did you ever fly a plane prior to going to flight school? Never.
No, this Captain Patinglo that recruited me said, hey, one of the questions on the test is, have you ever flown an airplane? And I hadn't yet. So I called a friend who, his brother was a pilot, like a Cessna guy, and he took me flying, let me fly it, for 20 minutes, whatever. I flew it. I had flown a helicopter. Yeah, I'd flown a helicopter, but the question was, have you flown an airplane? I was like, let me just So so I can answer yes to that question.
Yeah. One second, did I fly a helicopter? Hold on a second. No.
Not yet. Yeah, I don't know if I've flown on a helicopter. At that point, flying one. I
Agreed.
That's like very, very rare. How old were you the first time you actually flew a fighter jet by yourself? By the way, are they single seaters?
Yeah.
Right. It's not two.
So
it's one person.
I was probably 20. So the first time I flew a plane by myself, it happens like I think the 14th flight in the first plane you fly in the Navy. By the time I flew F-18s, I'd already flown 3 airplanes. At the time, there were 3 airplanes in the jet pipeline, and then I flew F-18s. So it was the 4th airplane I flew. But you fly solo right away. I think it was the 14th flight at the time it was a T-34, which is a turboprop tandem seat, twin 2-seat trainer, and then I flew a T-2, which is my first jet, and then an A-4 Skyhawk. So which is a Vietnam era jet, which was a trainer back then. And especially after like the second plane you fly and the third plane, it's very early on that you fly by yourself. You're being trained to be in that pipeline, in the jet pipeline. You're being trained to be a single seat aviator.
Wow. And
some of the Navy guys and some of the Marines go to 2 seats, but you're trained to be a single seat guy.
So do you vividly remember that first time that you took off and you're in the air and it's like you're flying by yourself now?
I wouldn't say vividly, but I remember thinking, I can't believe they're letting me go do this. Yeah, but the training is so good. Like, you definitely feel like you were taking your dad's car out when you were 15 or something. Yeah,
and you're like nervous, excited. Like, what are you feeling? It's like
it's all that.
Scared?
Not scared. No, just scared of messing up. Yeah, you don't want to mess up. The way the training works is you're not really scared of. You can't be scared. You can't operate if you're scared. So you're just. Maybe if you're scared of anything, it's just not performing up to your...
Yeah. And all this is exercises, right, at this point. Like, you're not actually doing any type of missions just yet.
Right.
Like, you're going up there, you're doing whatever it is that you need to do, and then you're coming back, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the way military flight training works is you never really get comfortable. It's like going to the gym. As soon as you can do 2 plates, they're putting another 10 on each side. So you never really get comfortable. And that's the way it's got to be. So that when I had to go to combat, it was like, it was almost easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good recipe for life.
It is.
Just
it really is.
And you said that earlier, and I'd love, seeing the comparison of life when it comes to these kind of things. Like, keep pushing yourself.
Right.
So what do you take out of that?
Well, you asked me before we went on about being religious. I think it's parallel. Like, I feel like flying is the physical world. And I was a master of manipulating machines in the physical world. That's what I was trained to do for years. And then, now you learn about growing as a person in a spiritual way. It's the same thing. It's like the same thing, just always, how can you get better? As an aviator, if you consider yourself good, you're dangerous. What people don't realize, and I was talking to my rabbi yesterday, Shabbos, we're talking about bigadim, how it's, boged. It comes from the word boged, like your clothes can, not be who you are. And I was thinking, like, when we go flying in the Marine Corps, you walk around the ship, everyone knows you're an aviator, you're a fighter pilot from the patch you're wearing. But we are very confident. If you're comfortable with who you are and you're not trying to get better, you're dangerous. And the same thing with, I think, as being a Jew. If you're comfortable where you're at, you got to keep moving forward and just keep improving and keep challenging yourself. And I heard one of you say you're working on yourself. I think it was you.
I think lately it's also him. So
we're trying him.
Yeah. We're working.
If you're not growing, you're going backwards.
Exactly. 100%.
Pick up on what you just said, by the way. You're dangerous. Like, first of all, I have a question. What's your call sign?
Zed.
Yeah. Okay. And you were spewing Top Gun right there, like telling when Iceman told Maverick, you're dangerous.
The themes in that movie are real. It's really cheesy, and it's really cheesy and really Hollywood. But I saw that when I was young. That's when I learned a lot about what naval aviation is about, and the themes in it, like I said, are very real. I had a friend who flew 2 seats, and he had a mishap, and his backseater didn't survive, and he's still plagued by it today.
Wow.
Yeah, like he didn't. When you're the pilot and your backseater goes out flying with you, you need to bring him home. And how do you face his wife and his son if you didn't bring him back? And that's a big theme in that first movie. And that's real. And I'm not like I'm not being dramatic when I say you're dangerous. If you're not, if there's a special kind of humility that all naval aviators have, especially when you try and land on a ship at night. We may seem, cocky and overconfident, but there's no such thing as overconfidence in a cockpit. You're constantly thinking, what can I do better? What can I, this little mistake that I made, how can I not yesterday? How can I not make that today? And when you're by yourself, hopefully the mistakes you make, you catch.
When did you open that world of spirituality? It seems like it's something.
I think I always had it.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with religion, so I grew up conservative, which wasn't really spiritual. I think I always had it deep down. I just didn't have a framework for it.
Can you share with us what happened? Like, did it?
So yeah, it's been obviously long. I wanted to go to a religious kibbutz for a few reasons. One, I wanted to go to kibbutz because being a combat, being in the paratroopers and in combat arms, I didn't want to have to worry about doing my laundry and going shopping on Friday afternoon after not sleeping for a couple of days. I'd heard all this, so I wanted to go to kibbutz, but I was going there to serve as a Jew. I didn't want to go to a kibbutz that was chileni.
Got it. Okay.
So there's a few kibbutzim.
So as a conservative Jew, you're in Israel, and you're like, let me go to a religious kibbutz.
And also, I wanted to know.
Just made sense.
Yeah, it made sense, and I wanted to know more about it.
Sure.
I had never kept Shabbat. Actually, on USY, we kind of kept Shabbat, but we really didn't. So I went to a religious kibbutz, and so there, I was exposed to it. Obviously, I kept kosher in the IDF because I was either in the kibbutz or in the army, and the army keeps kosher too. And I didn't really keep Shabbat in the IDF because if you're on the base, if you're in Lebanon on Saturday, it's just like Friday. It's got to be. But on the kibbutz, and I was exposed to holidays I'd never heard of before.
Did you experience Purim?
Yeah. Purim we used to do as kids.
Yeah. So what was another new one for you then?
Well, I guess Tisha B'Av. I was exposed to that on the summer trip. I never heard about that.
Yeah.
Because it was in the summer. Like, we took the summer off from being Jewish. So, So I think, so I was in the religious kibbutz, and there was an American kid there who wasn't there for the army. He was there to learn Hebrew, but he was religious, or at least Baal Tshuva, and he begged me to put on tefillin. And I was like, I had these tefillin from when I was bar mitzvahed, but my synagogue didn't even teach us how to put it on. I just had them. My grandparents got me them.
It was like symbolic more.
Well, I think my grandfather was like, well, when you get bar mitzvah, you need tefillin. So he got me some tefillin, but my synagogue didn't even do it. And then when I went on that summer program, it was the first time that USY, and I didn't know how to do it. I had to ask someone, but I did it for the summer because everyone else was doing it, and that was it. And it was and this guy begged me to put it on. I was like, no, dude, I'm not.
Was he Lubavitch by any chance?
See, later on, I realized he probably was influenced, but he was an American kid.
Yeah.
But my rabbis now take credit for it because they're like, of course he had to.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know what Lubavitch was at the time. But he begged me to put on tefillin, and then we went on a trip up to the northern border, like a few weeks before I was going to go get drafted. And he said, we're seeing soldiers go up the good fence up there near Metula, north of Kiryat Shmona, which ended up where I was as a soldier twice. But we see these guys going up there, and he's like, that was like the third time he begged me, please just put on tefillin and say the Shema and take it off. It'll take you 2 minutes. Please just do that for me. I'll sleep better at night. His name was Daniel. That's all I remember. So I was like, all right, dude, I'll do it for you. So I started doing that. And then I just do that. I did it for years and years. And that, I think, when I look back on it, I think that really doing that, eventually it just seeped in.
It made you more connected.
Yeah. And then after a while, I'm like, I'm still around. I'm not going to stop. If it ain't broke, I'm not going to try and fix it. I'm going to keep doing it. I just kept doing it. And it became, when I joined the Marine Corps, I told the guys, hey, wake me up 10 minutes early. I got to put on my tefillin. Because, during that first 10 weeks.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you kept doing it throughout the Marine Corps while not being observant of anything else.
Well, just a little bit. So I kind of wanted to move in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I came back, and my wife grew up conservative like me. And we started kind of not mixing milk and meat when we got married. When I went to college, I said, I'm not eating any more treif. I'm like this, I kind of wanted to move in the right direction.
So it was more than just tefillin then. It was
but I didn't
slowly but surely. It was
but it really and I don't know. I'm a sample group of one, so I don't. Maybe just as I got older.
Yeah.
I don't know. but definitely I feel like I've always been spiritual. I just didn't have a hook to hang it on. I didn't know what it was being spiritual was. I was spiritual. I'd go skiing and I'd be like, man, look, this is incredible. Or I'd go sailing and on a beautiful day. Like I was definitely spiritual, but just not as much in a Jewish way.
You weren't observant, but you were spiritual,
right?
Which is so nice.
You spend more time closer to God than we do because you're in the ear most of the time. So you're already halfway there. So
Very true, Ushy.
You probably have a better relationship with him than we do.
Very good point. Very good point. But then there was one point throughout your past, I guess, years where you're like, okay, I'm going all in. That's like, I guess,
obviously like there's accelerations,
levels.
But
it's a cool journey. It's
been it's been amazing, and I told you before we went online, I've been keeping Shabbos for 2 years now, and it's life changing. It really is.
Were there any really firm, very religious, ultra Orthodox people that you remember serving with you
in the IDF?
Not in the IDF, in the Marines.
No, I was the only Jew.
You were the only Jew.
Yeah, when I was an instructor.
There were other Jews, but not religious Jews.
No, I was the only Jew that I knew of. There was one that came through when I was an instructor. I'd been in about, let's say, 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years. A Marine that came through. There was a Navy guy that came through. That was one of my students whose mom was Jewish. But yeah, there weren't many Jews.
It makes sense. Jewish people are not known for their, we're known for our fear of heights. Like it's not something that we love. Like I was in the hospital the other day and I'm seeing like the doctors coming at Jewish, the nurse Jewish, the pediatrician Jewish. And I tell her, I'm like, honey, I feel like everybody in this hospital is Jewish over here. And she's like, are you surprised? Like that there are Jewish doctors out there? Like Jewish pilots, that's not something we're not athletes.
Right.
Like we don't like jumping, we don't like flying. Like that's not a Jewish
The Israeli
thing.
Air Force is pretty good. But
Yeah.
I'm curious how many pilots are out there even today,
Actually,
not working for El Al that are...
There are Jewish pilots around.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've flown. I had one flight where all three of us were
that's cool.
Jewish, yeah. The third guy considered himself Jewish. But in commercial aviation, there's a lot more than the Marine Corps. But yeah,
you said something earlier. I got to pick up on that, and then I'll pass it back to you, Ushy.
I cannot wait to start talking about.
I know.
I am like sitting
itching.
Here
I know.
Waiting.
I know, but I have to go back to Shabbos.
I love
I'm sorry.
this aviation stuff and IDF. This is Michael's jam, by the way. The IDF, so he could be on this.
Shabbos is my jam too, so I have to ask you. You mentioned. I promise. I'm going to back. We'll go to 9/11 all in, baby. But we actually had a survivor of 9/11 here. I say survivor, a first responder of 9/11.
Yeah, this is that one.
Yeah, and it was fascinating to hear that version of his story, and we lived it, so we appreciate it a lot, and it's in our blood, and we want to hear. And it's like, yes, I agree with Ushy. I'm waiting to get there, but you did say Shabbos helped change your life, and I got to jump on it real quick.
Yeah.
Explain to that for just 1 minute. How is Shabbos? What has it done for you?
It's been like almost 2 years now. I can't imagine not having it. Like, it just everyone says you shut off, and it's but I think so. We bought a place. I was just driving to shul and back for a lot of years. That's pretty much all I did on Shabbos. But when we bought the place where we could walk to shul and shut down entirely, I remember having like a 6-hour conversation with my wife. Like we were on our second date. Like I don't remember, even though we would go skiing together and we'd be on the lift, for 10 minutes, or having dinner together for 2 hours. But I remember it was probably this time of year, 2 years ago, when it's really, sunsets early. So dinner was over, at 7 or whatever. And we talked till 2 a.m. And I was like, what just happened? It's just, there's things like that, of course you're shutting down. And I can't wait to turn my phone on, especially in the last couple of years, see what happened in the world. Or see what I'm doing for work the nenext day. I can't imagine not having that, especially the world's just accelerating into this complete connectivity. I was asking Lily, do you know the idea of being good at directions? On the way here, she's never heard about it. Like I was always good at directions. I have a spatial mind. I can look at a map and know where I'm going, and now like her generation just plugs it in her phone. Like it's just constantly connected in ways that just didn't exist when I was Lily's age, and it's just like a lifeline. I can appreciate it. I don't think if you grow up like Lily does, I don't think she can appreciate it as much. But because I lived before the internet was in your hand, and it just when we'd go on a car trip and be bored for hours, and there's some value in that to just not being distracted by anything else and being able to focus on your wife.
Yeah.
I just
your
told someone.
friends.
I just told my neighbor over Shabbos. I have something called the road trip theory, and that is like a lot of times for shidduchim, like people, they recommend boys to girls or girls to boys, and based on a picture or based on a 1 hour meeting, she's not for me or he's not for me, and I say, it's interesting. If people spend a little more time with one another, they might actually get to know each other,
right?
And they might actually, and it was a whole debate. Can you build an attraction to someone? And I was saying yes, and someone else was saying no, and we were arguing about it.
Right.
And I was saying my road trip theory, which is, I guess, based on the Shabbos theory. You're talking to your relationship, you're talking to your partner for what you did when you were dating, and it's just awesome. I love hearing that. Yeah.
It's amazing. There's so many ways. I mean, in the community, we have an incredible community. Just to be able to, sit at the Kiddush and there's nowhere to go. Just be with people. Everyone's on a clock.
Love Kiddush.
Yeah, everyone's on a clock. It was doing the next thing. What's the next? I got to get home to make dinner or whatever it is. Just sitting there like nothing to do. Just be with your peeps, and it's just
be in the moment. Be
Right.
present.
Right.
If it wasn't for Shabbos, let's face it, we wouldn't turn it off. We'd be in
Right,
the office on
100%.
Saturday.
Right.
We'd be right back at it,
Yeah.
and we would ignore all those meaningful things that actually matter.
Right.
And this kind of forces that. And I
Right.
think that's what you're saying.
100%.
Is that Shabbos really just forces you to reconnect and to just be really about what's around you and what really matters.
Right.
And what really matters. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And anybody can practice this. It's not exclusive to just Judaism. It's just a great concept. But I think Judaism put a nice package around it.
100%.
We made it into like a, the Kiddush part.
I was about to say, you like the Kiddush.
The meals, the Shabbos meals, the
No,
food.
it is.
You add all these elements to it, and we found a way to make it fun, right? We found a way to make it in a very entertaining. So it's
you like
wonderful.
Kiddushes, come by us.
Yeah. No, I like my Kiddush. I'm good just where I am.
The community that you are, there's a Chabad there. There is a
it's
Chabad there.
amazing
Yeah,
Chabad.
yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, so
Later on, I've learned about Lubavitch. Later on, I was in the Marine Corps actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, back to landing
Yeah.
planes on ships.
So September 11th
with that
happens,
rubber
right?
band.
Yeah.
September 11th happens. Very
Whoa,
tragic.
You're jumping to September 11th. He has 20 years. 20 years. You're jumping over 20.
No, why 20
Oh,
years?
it's 5
Yeah,
years.
5 years.
5 years.
Five
Okay,
years.
you're right.
5
5
years.
years.
He's going through
5
5.5
years.
years,
Okay,
yeah.
you're going through the training or the process. Okay.
He flew
Yeah.
4 or 5 different fighters till he got
Right.
to the big
No
one.
combat, no missions.
No real,
a lot of just
action,
training.
But like I was saying, the training gets you ready.
Yeah,
I was very
because
ready.
you're always pushing yourself further
Yeah.
and further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one big thing is landing on a ship. The TA-4 Skyhawk, which is an A4 Skyhawk with 2 seats, the only computer chip in it was in my Casio watch. The plane was made in 1954. You literally started it. You have to start it with an external huffer start, an external jet engine that pulled up next side, and they plugged it in, and that would get the motor going. And once the motor was spooled up, you could give it gas and light it off. The way you lit it off was banging on the throttle, like your gas grill. Your gas grill, you hold it, and it goes click, 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 click. Well, you have to go click, click, click. Every time you banged on the throttle, it would ignite it.
And this is the training.
That's a jet that was flown in Vietnam.
Wow.
In the 50s. It was designed in the 50s, but in the 60s.
How are you training with throwing bombs down? I'm curious how
That
that
was
works.
like, we call it iron sights. That was no computers involved.
Right.
I literally dropped bombs the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, with your eyesight.
You're controlling for the different factors, which is the angle, the speed. This if you have a shallow angle, the bomb can land in a long. There's a big problem, more of a problem to solve longitudinally, right? If you go directly down, it's gonna where you're pointed because gravity's not playing on it. The less you're vertical, the more horizontal, then your speed. If you're going faster, the bomb's going to travel further. If you're going too slow, it's going to. So to hit a target, when you're having, and of course laterally, you have to line up on the target too. To hit a target took some training, and there were no simulators. I did it in the plane. The first time I dropped a bomb was a 25-pound practice bomb with a little charge on it, so you could see where it landed in the desert. But it was all just done. Manually.
Yeah.
And the same thing with dogfighting, the same thing with landing on the ship. So, it's great training. And then of course when I was given a Hornet, which had the computers in it and it was fly by wire, then I think one of my first, the average for my first bombing mission in a Hornet was like 11 feet. Whereas in the Skyhawk, if you could have an average of 75 feet, you throw out your worst bomb and your best bomb, and the average of the other remaining bombs is, if you can have an average of 75 feet, less than 75 feet, you were
And how did you score target-wise? Like, is there
you see there's rings in the desert.
Yeah. So how, like at a certain point, you're like, okay, I got this. Like I'm landing and it's going on the target like over and over. Do you get a score 1 to 10,
Yeah, you
100?
come back from the mission and you have your score.
Yeah.
And then there's, the comms, the communications and how the flowed. And if you did the pattern, you're doing
And how were you doing?
guys.
How were you scoring throughout the
Everything.
process?
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to get a bombing E, which was an average of better than 75.
Okay.
And because I was a Marine. And
E is a good thing.
Yeah, an E, excellence, a bombing excellence.
Oh, I see.
If you had a flight, and I didn't get it, I didn't make it. My first flight in a Hornet, I got it. But because I trained in this primitive jet, it's like, just made it easy.
Yeah, not
It's
to
like,
compare, really,
Yeah.
not to compare, but I have to mention is that I wanted to learn how to be a DJ. And, I went out to Best Buy and I bought an electric board. It was the newest one. I felt like, wow, this is so cool. I'm going to go to YouTube. And I went to get a lesson by this guy, DJ Gold. Shout out to you, bro. You're awesome. And he looks at me and goes, do you really want to learn? And I said, yeah, I really want to learn. He took out 2 CDs. And he put it in there, and I think he had an 8-track, and he took an old machine, and he said, use it with your ear. Learn how to just, jump from one song to the next. When you master the 8-track, you go to the CD. You master the CD, you go to the USB. Then you can go to automatic. And I'm just remembering, and I'm thinking how amazing it is. Also, another lesson in life when you're learning something. You're going to go straight for the kill, and you're not going to have the tools to know what happens if something goes wrong. Or
100%.
Yeah.
And so, if you have the discipline to get a bomb that's close to 75 feet to the target with a primitive A4, then when you get in a Hornet, it's easy.
Right. So you got on the Hornet, and suddenly you're EE++. You're doing great.
Yeah. And so and then landing on the ship in the primitive jet, it's steam gauges. It's you really have a seat of the pants. You're really dialed in. And then when you have a jet like with a Hornet, where you have a velocity vector, which solves for where the jet's gonna be downrange. It's an incredible amount of information, but and it makes it easier. Like the analogy with being good at directions, and now everyone's good at directions. They don't even know, the kids don't know the concept of it because everyone has an iPhone. So if you're good at directions and you have an iPhone,
it's a nice combination.
Love it. So you're landing properly. You're doing the bomb things. I'm sorry, I have to go back. Sure. You said a dogfight.
Dogfight, yeah. Air combat.
How do you train for a dogfight?
So
is it literally playing chicken?
Yeah. Navy and the Marine Corps, we do it before we get our wings. We do it. When I was done training, I finished instructing like 11 years ago. It was a 14-flight syllabus where you start off being defensive, one against one bandit, and then you go to being offensive against the bandit. No, you start off offensive, then you go to being defensive where the bandit starts behind you, and then you do neutral, 1 versus 1, and then you do 2 versus 1. So that let's say I'm the bandit, the 2 of you would be working as a team to kill me. 1v1, it's just, so that's a syllabus, it's 14 flights. And it's just basic, but if you can do that in the basic trainer jet, then when you're given the fighter jet, which has a lot better performance, you have the concepts down and you have a big advantage. But yeah, that's the
very cool stuff. And you're ready for all these 3 things, and then comes 9/11, and you're watching, and Ushy take over.
Here we go. Here we go. So 9/11 happened.
Right. Where are you? Where are you when 9/11 happened? At that morning. Where were you?
So I was in South Carolina.
Okay.
So I'd been an operational F-18 pilot for about a year, with a Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 251. We were a single-seat boat squadron, so we were assigned to a ship, and we were scheduled to go out the very end of September that year. We were the ready carrier. We'd been through our air wing workups. We were in CAG 1, Air Group 1, Carrier Air Group 1, and we were like kind of the ready carrier. So the carrier that's at sea can't come home until the next carrier high-fives it. It's a constant, like cops on a beat. There's carriers out there on patrol. So we were the ready carrier, and I knew I was going deploying. Lily wasn't born. My son was 14 months old. I remember we had a bare patch in the backyard, and my wife's like, "You got to lay the sod before you go." So we had a half a pallet of sod that someone dropped off, and I was laying the sod, and my neighbor came out, and we called him Michigan Mike, and he said, "A plane just hit the trade center. You need to go in." And it was beautiful in South Carolina, but I didn't know what the weather was here. I assumed it was cloudy, and a Cessna hit the trade center, and I laid sod for a few more minutes, and he came back out and said, "Josh, you need to go in and watch TV." So I went in, and the reason why I was laying sod that morning is because we were landing on the ship at night. We were training to land on the ship at night, and it was a 10-hour crew day, You can't be at work any longer than 10 hours when you're landing at night. So we weren't supposed to come to work till 2 that day. So that morning I was working in the yard and went in to watch the TV as the second plane hit. I saw the big impact. I'm watching the fire, and when the second plane hit, I threw on a flight suit and went to the squadron, because at that moment the news was saying we don't know how many of these planes are out there, and then I don't think the Pentagon had been hit yet. I don't think 93 had crashed yet. So we went thinking we're gonna have to shoot down some airliners, and no one in my squadron, there are 18 of us in my squadron, no one had a cell phone. This was 2001. We were, Marine Corps officers. We weren't paid that much. We didn't have cell phones, so we just went to the squadron, all of us. Like, even though we weren't supposed to go till 2, that the night operations were over. We all kind of independently, we didn't call anybody. We just went to the squadron. And then after about an hour, we were told, the reports were all the planes were on the ground. And then basically we all kind of stood down. There's nothing we could do. But they pulled up the deployment a few weeks, and we left September. The ship pulled out on the 18th, literally a week after, which I think was Rosh Hashanah that day. A week after 9/11, and I remember we flew out on the 19th, because the ship pulls out of port out of Norfolk, and then we fly out the next day and land on the ship. And then we didn't know where we were going, but I think Bush had given the Axis of Evil speech at that point, so we had an idea, but we didn't know. And I remember that Rosh Hashanah, who by sword, who by fire, who by water, was like, I knew the next day I was going out to do something. I didn't know what. And our routine deployment, the women, the squadron wives were planning to meet us halfway through the cruise in Italy. It was a med cruise. So like we had this rough plans that halfway through the women would come to Italy and the ship would pull in and we'd it's supposed to be a 6-month deployment and break it up in half. But on 9/11, that all changed. And we flew off on the 19th, and like I said, we didn't know where we were going. We went across the Atlantic, went through Gibraltar. We hung out off Syria for a few days, planning some raids into Syria, because Syria was in the Axis of Evil, and we kind of wanted to let them know we were keeping an eye on them. But then, we snuck through the Suez Canal. The carrier battle group snuck through the Suez Canal. The carriers, not just the carriers, the destroyers and the submarine or two, and other ships. Cruiser, I think. So we all kind of snuck through. I think we hit the canal at 11 o'clock at night or something, and by sunrise we were in the wide open Red Sea. And then we started flying missions that next night before we rounded Yemen.
And what kind of fighter jet is this?
F-18.
Is this the most advanced
at the time?
Jet?
Yeah, at the time it was the F-18 Charlie. The C model was the most advanced on the ship.
And how many F-18s are in that part of the world?
Well, on my carrier, there were 3 carriers to start off with. The 2 that were out of patrol, and then we came out, and the one we were relieving stayed out for an extra month. So we had 3 at the time.
At what point did you know where you were going and what you were doing?
I think when we hit the canal, the Suez Canal, we knew we were going to Afghanistan.
But somebody on the ship
we were already planning that.
Someone on the ship knew, though, or no one?
Yeah, probably a couple days before.
Right.
Like I said, we were planning strikes into Syria. Who knows if that's a feint or if that was actual an option.
Right.
But I don't know when the actual decision was made to attack.
But you knew you were heading in this area.
Yeah.
And how many ships? You said 3?
And there were 3 for the first couple weeks, and then it was 2. There was a Vincent. My brother was actually on the Vincent. He was an intel officer on the Vincent, which is it was wacky. I hadn't seen him in a year and a half, and he was 100 miles away from me on another ship. We ended up spending Thanksgiving that year together. He came over on a helicopter, and we spent Thanksgiving together.
But what a way to celebrate.
Yeah,
wow.
It was not 20. This year will be 24 years, I guess.
So you're hanging out there.
Yeah, so we were in a box about 100 miles off Karachi, Pakistan, and flying missions into Afghanistan. For almost 6 months, I didn't get off the ship other than to go flying. So I didn't touch land for 6 months. We pulled into Bahrain in early February, I think.
The first mission you went on, let's go to that for a second.
Right.
So take me into your headspace, if you don't mind. You're on the ship.
It's weird.
What do you guys do on the ship? You play chess?
No, we flew. We flew day and night.
Really?
On the way over there, we flew day and night. That was the first year that I remember, other than the IDF, of I had a bagel on Yom Kippur. I didn't put anything on. I just had a bagel because I wanted to fly. I felt like my life depended on being as sharp as I could be. It's like getting ready for the big game. I knew I was going to war. I wanted to be as sharp as I could be. and I wanted a little bit of blood sugar when I was trying to land on the ship that night. So
As your non-rabbi, I can tell you that what you did was okay.
Okay, good. I didn't have a
Just
rabbi.
in case you needed any validation from somebody.
Thank you.
You did the right thing.
Yeah. So
By the way, Ushy, look at that's the jet he was flying right there. It's much easier to have this conversation and put us there while we're looking at these at the pictures of the jets.
They really appreciate
second
what
from
we're
the right.
talking
Yeah,
about.
not that.
How fast does it go? What's the speed on it?
a little bit faster than the speed of sound. Wow. Yeah.
What, like 1,000 miles an hour? How many-
Yeah, about that. Depends
Yeah.
on your altitude, but yeah.
So again, you're on your way and you're passing by the Suez Canal, you're doing your thing. You're
Yeah.
not sure yet what your mission is.
Right.
And you're going that, and you said every day and night you'd be flying though during
Yeah,
those.
you generally fly day and night.
Just
to
just
stay
while the
sharp.
ship is
Yeah, they gotta keep
going,
planes in
you're
the air.
keeping right.
Exactly.
You're keeping it just for practice, just
for practice.
So you're constantly flowing with the ship. So
Yeah.
as the ship is moving forward, you're taking the plane going up.
The ship will turn into the wind
Yep.
to operate,
Yep.
and when we're done operating, it'll move downrange, move somewhere else. But it needs to be oriented to the wind to take off and land.
Got it. So you're constantly in like combat
you go.
ready
That's
zone.
self-through.
Oh, that's he just had it.
That's taken from a tanker. You can see the refueling probe starting to come out there, and the nose on the right there.
How many bombs are on your plane attached to you?
Jen, we flew with either one big bomb, a 2,000 pounder, or sometimes two 2,000 pounders, but generally like 3 500 pounders became the loadout.
Okay.
In the beginning, we knew what we were going to go up. Like my first mission, I blew up a Taliban barracks. That was one 2,000 pound bomb with a GPS.
I'm
guidance.
sorry. We got to take a step back.
That's what I did. That's his operating. He's about to take off right there.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
we'll watch that another time. But for now, I want to feel the reality
Yeah.
of what it was with you in it. So you're going every day. You're practicing. You're keeping you're keeping yourself at the edge of your seat. You're sharp. You're going to sleep every night. I imagine your heart is pounding a little bit throughout the days, or you're calm as a cucumber. Like what's your
No. I mean, what's crazy about the ship is there's not that many of us on this. There's like 5,500 people on the ship, but there's not that many fighter pilots.
okay?
There's three F-18 squadrons, and there's about 18 in each squadron, 18 pilots. And then there's one F-14 squadron, which I think had 15 pilots. So there's not that many of us. The whole ship, the refueling planes, the radar planes, the helicopters to pull us out of the water if we bail out, they're all there to support the onboard delivery plane. They're all there to support us. The whole reason the whole carrier exists is so that we can go do our mission.
If I can get this correct,
Yeah.
over 5,000 people
Yeah.
to support the 3 fighter jets that are going out.
Not
Three
like
squadrons.
50.
Three squadrons.
But
Yeah,
like
it's by
50 pilots.
60.
No,
let's say
jets.
60 or 70.
How many jets?
Oh,
I'm saying.
12 in each squadron.
That's
so
what I mean.
36
Yeah.
F-18s plus
Yeah.
I think they had 10 F-14s.
It's just that magnitude of what
The
I'm
amount of
listening-
support it needs.
the
Yeah.
amount of support that it needs, which obviously makes sense.
That's a lot, though. I mean, most countries in the world don't have an air force that has what a carrier has.
Wow.
In terms,
What a comment.
And the capability. Naval aviators. I had a cousin who married an F-15 Israeli F-15 guy, and he said, "I always respect you because you land on ships."
It's a whole different ball.
It's a whole different ball game. We had like a fraternity of the pilots on the ship. When there's night operations, they have a mid-rats, a midnight meal, and it doesn't start until the last guy lands. And when the last guy lands at night, there's like a collective exhale.
It's risky. And
Very
anything
risky.
the most experienced person
Yeah.
can have a mishap.
Right.
It's such a tiny runway on this,
Yeah. And
on a
the
moving
margins-
target. Nonetheless.
Let's go back to my
Yeah.
documentary
Yeah.
that I'm painting here. So you're going around every day. You're practicing. This is a few days already happening
Right.
as you're getting closer and closer to a mission that you don't
Right.
even know when it's going to come.
Right.
When is the first time you hear about that mission?
So we were dropping this weapon, which is a new weapon at the time, which is a JDAM. And most of the time, especially with the F-18, we could simulate something, do it in a simulator, and then you do it for real for training. But the JDAM was a new weapon at the time, the Joint Defense Attack Munition, which is a GPS guided weapon. And we had one laptop computer that was a secret laptop that had the software to drive this thing. And we'd never done it. We'd never dropped it. This gets back to the training. So we had 18 of us around one laptop trying to figure out how to do it. And at the time, my plane didn't have a Jeep. They had Jeep. For some reason, it took like 10 minutes for the GPS to align on the ship because you had to tell where it was in the world off the. So you have to align the INS, the inertial navigation. So it took like 10 minutes on the deck of the carrier to get the jet to know where it was. It's not like your iPhone, which always knows where it is right now. And then once the jet knew where it was, you'd have to figure out there's a special cable to connect to the bomb. This is bringing me back 25 years, but a special cable that you'd have to tell the bomb where it was, and then make sure everything was working. And this is you're going to destroy things and kill people with this thing. So it needs to work right. So there was a lot of stress. Like when we found out what our first mission was and what our loadout was, and that we were dropping these weapons, that we went up on the deck that day to take a physical look at the bomb, to see it for the first time, and to see the cable for the first time. And it was a few hours before we were doing it for real. And I didn't want to mess it up. You know, no one wants to mess it up. You want to do the mission. So we we're literally 18 of us huddled around this one laptop, going through it. I'll go back. I missed it. Go back a page, trying to figure out how to do this. And then we went and did it, and everything went well. And it was like, because like it gets back to the years and years of training where you're just never comfortable, always trying to figure it out, leaning on each other. You knew one guy was a little bit more geeky than, hey, dude, tell me what I need to know. Like that. And it's just all you're trained for that.
Love it. You're hovered over the laptop, 18 of you. You go look at the missile itself. You get familiar with it. You touch it.
Right.
You feel it. And then you hear what the mission is. They get
my
you
mission
all together.
was Taliban barracks in a place called Herat, which is in the southwest of Afghanistan.
Which you never heard of before in your life. You're there for the first time.
Yeah.
You never even practiced going in this area that you're going to.
No.
You're just using guiding.
The big thing was the aerial refueling. We need to refuel lots of times.
Interesting.
At night,
Yeah. But before the first mission happened, they're telling you, okay, this is the barracks that you're going to, and we have intel to tell us that this is a targeted area that you need. They don't tell you more than that.
The four of us came through a Taliban base, and I had a barracks building which was 3 stories tall, and we had this primitive, really primitive software to weaponeer. So I fused that bomb to go off on the ground floor, because a contact fuse might go off on the roof, and then you're just going to blow the top off the building, but I want to destroy the whole building.
So how do you fuse the bomb?
So we estimated what it was made out of,
what the structure is made out of.
Yeah, it was like probably bad, low quality concrete, this many floors. I forget the data we put in there, but it was a primitive system to weaponeer. And then it told you the fusing time. So when the bomb impacted the roof, how many milliseconds later before it went off. And in the end, you go through the software, but then it's like, you know what, I'm doing this. I think this makes sense. And it
let's
worked
go.
out. Yeah, my brother was an imagery officer on the Vinson. So then on the secret internet, I emailed him and said, hey, I did my first mission. Here's the DIMPI, which is the target number. And so he sent a satellite picture the next day on the secret thing of because I got a picture of the building before I went. But the next day, he sent me an after,
You get to see if the calculation was good.
Yeah,
and
it worked out.
It worked out.
You could barely tell it was a building. Yeah. It was like one corner that you can kind of make out was a corner, but the rest of it was just.
So you're told there's a mission. You all get together, and it's at night.
Everyone had different missions. Some did bridges. Like I was in a 4-ship that was going against this base.
And you all went at once.
Yeah, the 4 of us, and we came through on one pass. And I couldn't believe it. The GPS at that almost that moment, I was like, I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm an aircraft carrier, because that bomb's an aircraft. It flew itself into the target. So it was really I had never trained on it ever. And we're doing it for real. The first time I did a real mission was in this weapon I'd never used before. And it was really like turning a page in air-to-ground combat.
It sounds like you literally dropped the first bomb, so to speak, or your group.
I think maybe that might be the first time a GPS weapon was used in combat. I don't know.
Or just like the war against 9/11.
That wasn't, I got my air medal for, supposedly, back in those days, UAVs were a new thing and they weren't weaponized. They only were, surveillance. So the Predator or whatever other drones were out there would watch stuff, but we'd have to go blow it up.
Wow.
So my air medal was for the first time, supposedly, I don't know but the air medal says the first time that a Predator, an unmanned aerial vehicle, which is a Predator at the time, gave me a talk on to blow up Al-Qaeda leadership. So who knows if it was actually the first time, but it's the way it was. Nothing was, like I said, the training, even though this might be new stuff, the training was just, we were ready for it.
First night you come back, you just did a mission. The 4 of you went and you completed it. You fly back. What's the energy like? Is everyone clapping their hands when you're coming down? Are you talking to your fellow?
I need to get to sleep because I need to do it again tomorrow. Because you come back for a night trap on the ship.
So everyone's just in serious mode.
Yeah, I think we took off at midnight. We're probably back at 5 a.m. And you're wound up, and then the sun rises. You kind of wanted the sun to be rising, so it wasn't a night trap. But if the sun was rising, then your body was more awake, and it'd be hard to get sleep for the next night. And that's just the cycle. It was a battle to get sleep, to get rest.
What's your trick to falling asleep?
I couldn't. There were nights I couldn't. There were days. I remember I lived in a 2-man with another guy, a guy from Arkansas. I grew up in a farm in Arkansas, and he's like a brother to me. And he wrote the schedule, who was doing what mission. And I remember having to get up for a flight. He knew what pilots were available in the squadron and what everyone had been doing because he wrote the schedule. I remember getting up, and the ship changed its whole routine. 6 p.m. was 6 a.m. Breakfast was served at 6 p.m. Again, the whole ship oriented itself so that we could operate in an effort to try and shift us to the night page. We called it the night page because we were the night carrier for the first 2 months. And like it didn't really work. Like so one night I got up. It was one night I got up to go flying and I hadn't slept. And I'm like, how do I do this? I got to refuel 6, 7, 8 times maybe. I got to drop bombs. I got to not kill myself when I come back to land. And I remember telling my buddy, like, dude, he's like, dude, there's no one else. You got to go. And my wife sent me a bunch of candy bars at Thanksgiving so I'd stuff my G Suite pocket full of candy bar and little trick or treat candy bars. And I'd take 6 or 8 of them and try and get a sugar high. If I was getting a low, we could pump up our G Suite to get the blood flowing.
Jeez, it's a battle of attrition over here. Yeah. It's like the NASCAR racers. You know, like they have to be in shape. They have to be totally fit. They have to be mentally aware. Like it's not just fighting. You know, flying the plane.
No,
there's a lot of ancillary things going on that you got to be managing to 100%. Be at your best self.
100%.
I'm curious, how much money are you earning right now from the military? What are you getting paid?
I stayed in for 20 years, so I have a pension.
No.
Yeah.
At that moment, what were you earning then? When you were you were flying a fighter jet, dropping bombs in Afghanistan, basically managing America's war right now.
Yeah, you're not paid that much, and it's I think at that time, I don't know, 70 grand a year. In 2001, maybe 60 grand. We get flight pay, which is a little bit more.
So you're making like a public school salary, like public school teacher salary.
It was better than public school. Yeah, a little bit better, I would think. That back in those days, like
back then, right? It's a decent salary.
A decent salary,
right?
Everyone gets paid the same,
right?
The competition is like who you are as a pilot, as a person, as a dude. Like,
it's bragging rights more like.
Yeah, no one really brags.
Not brags, like prestigious.
No one brags.
Like
everyone kind of knows.
Yeah.
Like when the sun's setting, I'm on the carrier, and like the sun's getting low, and we're doing night ops. You can tell if someone's scared, if they've lost their edge. You can tell, and you don't talk about it. You just know someone had a really bad night last night. You know, how's he going to do tonight? There's a camera watching every landing. You know, and you know someone's having maybe not doing so great. He's coming in to land, and man, you knew how he landed that night before, and it was a really bad landing. And man, I hope come on, dude. You got this. Like everyone kind of knows, not just your squadron, not just the 18 of you, but the other Navy guys. We all got to know each other. We do missions, two Marines and two Navy. Like we were one big team, and you don't really. No one brags, no one talks about it, but it's constant. Like you're constantly thinking, oh man, I owned him yesterday in a dogfight.
It's crazy.
Like, to push yourself. Keep pushing yourself.
Push yourself,
having the support of others. Any rituals that you had? Did you listen to certain music when you woke up?
My wife sent me an album for a band we liked, and it was.
What'd you listen to?
It was a band called Better Than Ezra.
Oh, I know Better Than Ezra. I remember them.
My really good buddy, he's from Arkansas. The guy from Arkansas, he had a whole sleeve of CDs, and I think all but one of them were Johnny Cash. So whenever I hear Johnny Cash, I think back to. To that.
How long? How many missions? How long did it take this process?
I did 42 missions in Afghanistan.
How long of a period?
About over 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months. Any mishaps? Any?
No. It's almost it's acceptable to lose aircraft when you're operating on a ship.
Yeah.
Less and less so over the years, but
you're saying you didn't have.
We didn't have one.
What a blessing, though. I'm saying all of you just
I felt like it was really incredible. I think because when it's game day, you reach that peak performance, and everyone came back.
I said I can keep going forever, and I'd love to learn so much more. But I do want to get to where you're up to now, and because that's also interesting for me.
We've gotten so distracted with this whole history of yours. And
it's amazing
because it really deserves a podcast on its own. But
literally,
like when I heard you were coming and you were United pilot, I'm like, wow, that's so interesting to me. Yeah. Like I have so much to discuss, but it's like an hour and a half in. Like
I know, I was saying now we're up to that era.
There yet.
I only read one thing on ChatGPT, but no, I want to know.
Our podcast is going to be delayed.
So you had flown these missions. You continued to serve for the following 15 years
Yeah.
or so, right?
Right.
Seen any combat beyond that?
No, not in the Marine Corps.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Thank God, I think you've
Yeah.
seen enough.
thank God. And then you decided to hang your hat of service and then went to work for commercial.
Yeah,
Tell me
so
about that process,
Early
that transition.
on in the Marine Corps, even before on my way to flight school, I was in a squadron for a few months with a lot of reservists who were airline guys, and I realized that I'd already started flying a little bit, and I realized that I never want to stop. So although I never planned to be an airline pilot, it just seemed like I had it was the logical next thing, and so I kind of always thought I'd do that, and I was when you get your wings, you have an 8-year commitment, and now I think it might be 10 years even. But so I only got my wings after being in the Marine Corps for 3.5 years, and then I had 8 years to go. So when I was done with my operational tour, I still had like 2.5 years left of Marine Corps time, and I wanted to get out. I was planning to get out. I had done 2 deployments. Lily only she was alive for one of them, but saying goodbye to your kids for 7 months is not natural. It's not right. It's not something I wanted to keep doing. So 2 of those was enough. And I said, I'm going to go be an instructor and I'll teach kids how to fly, and then I'll be able to transition to the airlines. Age 65 happened in 2007, where the airline industry, the mandatory retirement went from 60 to 65. And that's when I could get out that next summer. But the career progression was stagnant because of that. It already a downturn from September 11th in the airline industry, and then with the financial crisis of 07, 08, there was another hit to the airline industry. So they didn't need any more pilots. There was no expansion going on. So I said, right at that moment, the Marine Corps asked me to go be an attaché. So I went and did that because they asked me to do it because they needed a guy who could fly. So I had an airplane and I could stay current. And then at that point I said, I'm staying in for retirement, because that took me to 15.5 years. And then, so I had to do another couple jobs, but I was able to finish up current as an instructor pilot. And then I got hired at United, right, like went right in the door.
You knew you wanted to work for United specifically?
Yeah, well, I wanted to work for Continental back in 08.
Okay.
Because I wanted to come home. It
Yeah.
was literally my ticket to come home to my hometown. Lily was able to go to my middle school and high school, the one I graduated from. And being military kids, that was like something I wanted to give them, a little bit of.
Let's give a shout out. What school was this?
Rumson Ferryman High School.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
And then, I always wanted Continental, and then with the merger, became United. And it's an amazing airline. It's been amazing. I've been there 11 years now. November was.
You wanted United. I'm just curious, like over Delta or
yeah,
American.
100%.
I'm so curious about this topic.
Yeah. So at the moment, in 08. The place to be in 07, 08, when I was first thinking about getting out, the place to go was Southwest, which seems kind of weird now, but it was the place to go. But I always wanted Continental.
Are you talking about in terms of compensation? Are you talking about in terms of flexibility?
Getting a stock, you want to get you want to get NVIDIA when it's X, not Y.
Right.
That's the way I looked at it. And it's also what I always told my Marine pilots, like my Navy students as well, like this is not a date, this is not a girlfriend, this is a marriage. Because it's all about seniority. When you go in an airline, a pilot's a pilot, a captain's a captain. How I get my schedule, it's where I am, let's say on the line for the buffet at the Kiddush, is based solely on
Seniority.
your date of hire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ideally you want to go to an airline and like you're getting married, I want to pick the right woman, I want to pick the right airline. So for me, Continental and then United, because of the Newark base being 45 minutes from my hometown, I didn't want to commute. I wanted to be able to drive to work. Commute is when you fly to work. So I want to be able to drive to work, which gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of,
I once went for fun and I drove a race car around the tracks, and it was exhilarating. It hit 200 miles an hour and it was crazy. And then when I drove back home, I was like, what's going on here? Like I'm doing
boring.
60.
Like a go-kart.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about you is are you finding any thrill out of it? Are you enjoying it?
In flying?
Yeah, right now going to commercial. I mean,
even in the Marine Corps,
yeah,
like it wasn't thrilling. It sounds crazy, but the same thing that you just described. One of the things you learn is low-level flying. So in the TA4 that I flew, like I said, it didn't have a computer chip. There was no recording device, no recorder in it. So the instructors in there were like a little bit cowboyish, and we did our low levels at 50 feet. So we'd fly around at 420 knots, which is like over 500 miles an hour at 50 feet.
Wow.
In the canyons out west, in Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California. So we're like down in the ground, in the earth, flying very fast. And when you first do that, it takes a couple minutes to get used to that. We call it the speed rush. But then you develop a speed rush baseline. And I remember my instructor at one point being like, hey, go up to 100 feet. So I go up to 100 feet doing 420, and the world kind of stopped because that was half the speed rush. Same thing. So then all of a sudden, like flying at 100 feet was like boring. I wanted to get back down to 50 where it was like a little bit challenging. And that's the way it always is. Like a minute is a thrill for a second, and then it becomes, all right, routine. And you're constantly, you're even flying an F-18 fast and speed, even dogfighting. When I was teaching dogfighting, it was almost like I could be thinking about 3 things and teaching it. Well, when you're first doing it, your mind's exploding.
Sure.
We call it your helmet's on fire because your mind's exploding. Like, but everything. That's what it's about, being routine. Nothing is. If it's exciting, you're doing something wrong.
Love it. So it's time to get into the secrets of the airline industry because, when I'm sitting on a plane and we're on the runway,
right,
and they cancel the flight and they go back because of weather,
right,
I always ask myself, who decides that it's weather? Who decides that it's not?
Right.
Is it government run? Do they have to say that it's, they sometimes say it's mechanical because you could get your money back if it's not. And
right.
I'm curious about that world.
It's a very gray world. And here's a good example. You're at Newark and there's a line of thunderstorms coming through, right? And you can get out now. Let's say you're trying to go west, going to Chicago or California, but the line is coming from Pennsylvania and there's some holes in it. You can get out now, but you have minor mechanical that sets you back half an hour. And now the holes in the thing closed up and you can't get through that. And now everyone's trying to get around the south through Georgia, get around that line of thunderstorms in the south. And now there's everyone who was trying to go west needs to go all the way down to Georgia to go west. So now you're like 10th in line, right? And then the pilot times out because of that minor mechanical, and he's on his 3rd flight of the day, and he doesn't have the crew day for it. So now you're 2 hours late, and the pilot's time out. Is that a crew issue? Is that a mechanical issue? Or is that a weather issue? So it depends. And obviously the airline is they're very, very transparent with the app now. I find out a lot of times from the app what's going on.
For weather-wise, you mean?
No, like the other day, there was, now not my iPad shows exactly the same thing as the app, so it's the same thing. But like the other day, I went to Chicago and back, and it was when there were long waits for wheels up times to get back. And I landed Chicago, and I was coming back, supposed to come back to Newark, and I opened up my iPad, and it's 2.5 hour delay, 2:15, and then it became 2:45 delay. Just because there weren't enough slots, there were wheels up times to come back here. So it's what's on your app, your United app, is pretty much, And the other day, actually, I remember looking and saying, "No, this isn't quite right," because we were delayed. It's the first flight of the day that shouldn't have happened, but there was a maintenance issue on the jet, and we were delayed. They ended up saying this jet's not serviceable, so we had to go to another jet. And then but our original jet had been catered. So all the catering carts were in the original jet. So the people, by the time I got out of the cockpit, they knew they were going to gate 80. I got out to the gate area and there was no one left there. All the passengers were at the new gate. And we had to get the flight plan so we get out there and now I have the new jet, the gas I need, the people on board, the cargo's on board. Oh wait, it hasn't been catered because they had to get an extra catering truck to go to the old jet. Instead of taking it from the warehouse directly to the jet, they had to go unload it and reload it.
Even more time.
Yeah. And then, so we ended up taking off an hour late. I think it was going to LA. And we take off and I see the reason for the delay is servicing. They blame the caterers. It's not the caterer's fault. The jet maintenance should have had the jet ready. I'm sorry, your plane was late. The app said because of servicing. For
Okay,
the caterers.
can I just point out, I don't quite frankly care what it is and whose fault it is. Here's what I know. When it comes to these airlines, it's not just United, it's not exclusive to them, and they all do it. They do whatever they want. We are at their mercy.
Right.
At the end of the day, the passengers, we fly when they tell us to.
Right.
We go home when the flight is canceled when they tell us to. And weather, service, but who cares? Who cares?
Right.
I feel like they get to do sort of whatever they want.
Right.
And it's a little bit not fair. Like, as the consumer, I would expect a little bit of accountability to the point where we get some rebate, a refund, or like a free ticket every now and then because of our. I feel like nobody cares. I feel like the airlines get to pretty much. It's like, what's the deal with that? Does the government regulate them a little bit? Is there anybody holding them accountable?
There's no. The airline has no interest in delaying you. We only make money when that jet takes you where you need to go and is on to the next mission. There's no reason why the airline wants to have any delay.
Okay, I get, but I'm sorry to interrupt. I get this. I fly literally every other week for 20 years. I have really important questions to ask you. A serious question.
We may have, by the way, flown on one of his flights for over
possible.
We fly out of Newark a lot.
So I need to know a few very important questions. First of all, if you don't mind, it's just
please.
like I'm living in the East Coast. What's the best airport to fly out of? Is it JFK, Newark, or LaGuardia?
You're on this side of the river, Newark.
Newark is always better.
If you're in Manhattan, you can go either way.
It doesn't matter. If I had a choice
You have
between
to
all
cross
three,
the river you have to go one way or the other.
if I had a choice between all three, which airport is performing the best?
As far as
these days?
reliability?
Yeah,
Like, which one
as
is
far as
gonna-
taking off on time and
I think JFK has the most resources. Newark is a lot in a compressed area.
Okay.
But
So you're saying stay away from LaGuardia. Got it. Okay.
well, LaGuardia sometimes you get in and out of there real easily. The answer is it depends.
Okay.
It's where are you on this side of the river?
I am, but I
Yeah,
would literally
Newark then.
rather drive 20 extra minutes to go to a better airport.
Maybe, and it depends on the flight. Depends where you're going.
You're saying it depends on so many things.
So
Back
many
to the
things.
gray thing. Okay.
It
I'll-
also depends on where you're going because the airport, like Chicago,
Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to keep
has
pushing.
a lot of delays.
I'm going to keep pushing. I have other good questions.
Yeah.
So when I'm flying and I go to Google Flights, it gives me 20 different options. I can go to Delta, I can go to American, I can go to United, I can go to JetBlue. Literally almost every time I fly. And I'm talking about going to Chicago, going to LA, going to Florida. Obviously you work for United.
No,
you might
I'd
have to say United.
We already have the most points. Where do you want to? That's
No, my question is, we're talking about mechanical, we're talking about catering, we're talking about logistics, we're talking about processes. Airlines ultimately have to take responsibility for all these things, right? So if they have a more well-run oiled machine, right, then likelihood that I'll get out on time.
100%.
Is there an airline that ranks, like if you fly Delta or United?
I think Delta and United are pretty much neck and neck, and American's not far behind.
Okay.
Like I said, the resources we have now with there's so much data going in.
Sure.
It is an incredible. I've been doing it 11 years now. I'm amazed at how operationally efficient it is. When there's a wrinkle in the system, how we compensate, how we make it
Are you
happen.
talking about United?
United?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because does that mean
I'm Delta. I don't fly for them, but Delta I'm sure has the same technology.
Yeah.
It gets down to the dollar. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, Michael, these things you can Google and see how the
Yeah.
airlines rank and how
No,
often
no,
they're
no.
on time.
It goes to the
what
airport,
airports
too.
are the best or not.
Right.
Sure,
Literally,
but
I might ask good questions like,
There's so
what
much
do you
data on
actually
this.
do? Are you actually pushing buttons the entire time, or are you actually
Beautiful.
sitting
That
in
was
your
a
seat
question.
and you just like take
I don't
off,
mind you
landing,
getting-
and there you go.
I don't mind you getting to that question. I'm still pushing. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
please.
I have to, because ultimately I've heard in the past that Virgin Airlines or other airlines like that, they pay extra to be closer perhaps to taking off. Can you tell me about that?
It depends on like if Delta owns it. Like you go to Hartsfield, Delta's gonna have the best gates. You go to Newark, United's gonna have the best gates.
There you go. That makes a difference, right?
It makes a difference.
Okay, perfect. So United Newark, that's the marriage over there?
100%.
Okay.
We own
JFK,
Newark.
who owns JFK as far as airline?
We're not in JFK at all.
Okay.
I think that's all the other airlines besides United
I see.
in this
No,
area.
United is not in JFK whatsoever.
No, we pulled out. We gave our slots to Delta. It's about slots, landing.
Because that gives you seniority as far as who's taking out and who's going to the front of the line and getting that pocket to get out, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty. Like I was at Heathrow a couple weeks ago, and I felt like British Airways was getting better treatment. But there's a reason. There's stuff you don't. Even as a pilot, I don't know what every flight in front of me in line is going, and maybe I'm waiting in line for takeoff because of my exit fix, like the fix that I'm exiting the area on. Maybe like there's space and there's a guy coming from JFK and a guy coming from LaGuardia for the same fix that I don't know about those guys. So we can't hit there at the same moment in time.
Got
so
it.
why is that? Why is American taking off in front of me? Well, probably because he's going to a different departure fix. So it's there's so much stuff going on. It's an incredibly huge. The United's music is Gershwin, and it is so fitting. Like when you're on hold or whatever, you hear that Gershwin in Chicago when you're going through the tunnel there. You hear Gershwin. It is a symphony when it all comes together, and we push on time. And I have a window into all the different moving parts, and to some extent I can lean on that. But when it all comes together, it is a symphony. It is an incredibly complex operation.
Love it. I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
So if I'm flying United Newark, that's smart, right? Because United,
Absolutely.
right,
Yeah, we're the
owns
best.
Newark, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? And that helps. What about just one tip for flying so you could fly less stressed, right? A lot of people fly. I chill when I fly. I fly an hour and a half before, and I
get
go
a lot. Yeah. So
what are the tips for flying, like early morning or any other tips that you can
I
give?
call it the dawn patrol. That's what we called it in the Marine Corps, the first flight of the day. It's painful to get up, but the jet's generally there. What people don't realize is that jet is constantly flying. It's like the opposite of the Pony Express. When the Pony Express riders, they used to swap horses because the horses could run like 12 miles. And
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Now the horse keeps running. The plane can fly all the time, but the people can't fly 24 hours a day. But the plane is constant. The plane that's taking you wherever you're going to LA might have come in from Shannon, Ireland. And, it's a constant, we don't make money when our jet's on the ground. We make the money when the jets are flying. So first flight of the day, the plane probably got in that night, maybe the red eye, couple hours. First flight of the day is always the best. Definitely wouldn't fly in the afternoon in the summertime around here. Daily heating thunderstorms, which is the afternoon thunderstorms, are a real thing. And it might be a blue sky here, but the way the airspace is, if there's thunderstorms in the wrong place, trying to get into Newark, your plane's not going to be there on time. Your plane might have to go to an alternate because it doesn't have the gas to hang around to wait to get into Newark. It might be in Philadelphia or somewhere else. So, and that's going to gob you up. So early morning, if you can't do that, maybe later in the evening when you can say, yeah, my plane is coming in from LA and it's landing on time. I'm going to head to the airport.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I do have more questions, but I'm gonna pass it over to Ushy because he's curious about
I want to know exactly what Stefan asked about.
I'm also very curious
I
about
want
that.
to know exactly how much of it do you as the pilot actually control versus just
flying?
push a button and it just automatic. I imagine when you take off, that's very manual, right? The actual takeoff process.
Taxiing is very manual.
Yeah.
So taxiing is moving the jet on the ground. That's very manual. I'm literally steering it and starting it and stopping it. And then the takeoff is very manual, but even that's somewhat automated. The throttles most of the time set themselves. But I'm airline flying. I usually fly for 10 or 15 minutes until I get bored. And then I put the autopilot on. It's kind of like when you get on the parkway, you drive around here, but when you get on the parkway, if there's no traffic, all right, I'm setting the cruise control so I can take a little bit of the work off. So we do the same thing. We get up to a certain altitude.
But that's optional? If you wanted to fly the plane the entire time yourself, you could?
No, when you're up in the cruising altitudes, everyone's got to be on autopilot.
Automatically you have to go to autopilot.
And then coming down, the same thing. If there's bad weather, I generally tend to fly a little bit earlier. Like if it's going to be really windy on landing, gusting, challenging landing, I'll fly a little bit earlier so I can get the motor skills going, get warmed up. But you could theoretically, when the weather's bad, and I can't see, I have to be able to see to land. I have to use my eyes for the landing. The plane doesn't. The plane can land and track down the runway after landing. And that's the only way.
You could sit back
I literally,
for the entire
it's called
thing,
an auto
even
land.
the landing part.
Yeah, I could.
You push a couple of buttons and the plane lands
So then you don't
itself.
have to see when you're landing, technically.
Plane doesn't have to see. I have to see. If I'm physically at the controls, manually landing, I have to be able to see something.
Well,
right?
when you land, do you land with auto land or do you actually land?
Once or twice a year, I have to use auto land when the weather's bad.
But why wouldn't you always use auto land?
Good question.
Shouldn't we rather trust a machine than a human making an error, perhaps?
Maybe. I think there'll come a day. In a lot of the airlines, not United, but some of the foreign carriers especially, use the automation
more mandatory.
More, and maybe that like there was a mishap in San Francisco that might have been part of that being because automation in the end is a crutch. So if you're leaning on a crutch all the time, you're not as strong as if you're not going to walk as strong, right? If you're on crutches, so automation is a crutch. I like to look at it as a tool. That's the way the airline looks at it, as a tool that you should use at the appropriate times. But in the end, we need to be able to fly. Like getting back to my analogy of like being good at directions. The best is if you can read a map and you're good at directions, and you have an iPhone, and you have automation, and you could do both.
You can do everything.
So that's the reason why you shouldn't, and my airline doesn't, encourages people to fly, to keep the skills up, and to keep.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is for me a very important
Please.
question, Michael. If I could have just one question to ask him, like this is what I would choose. This is what I would pick. I am what you call a very anxious flyer, and I flew a pretty decent amount. I think I fly more than the average person flies,
Right.
and it's always an adventure for me. Already the night before, I'm getting anxious about
Right.
the fact that I'm flying the next day.
Right.
While I'm on the flight, the entire time I'm nervous.
You're worried about missing the flight? What are you worried about?
No. The safety,
Oh,
the
okay.
danger in flying is what I'm worried about.
Right.
I don't love the
Right.
comfort part of it either,
Right.
but that's not what keeps me up at night. While I'm on the flight, if there's a little turbulence, I hold on
Right.
to my chair, like,
Or to me.
or to my whoever's next to me, whether I know them or not. And I'm just always nervous, like
Right.
something's going to go wrong. Like
Right.
too many things have to go right. I'm in this like metal tube, like
Right.
30,000 feet in the air.
Right.
And if God forbid something goes wrong,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of options for us here. I'm not on solid ground. So I'm always very nervous about it.
Right.
And I keep hearing from people, it's the safest thing. You have more of a chance of getting struck by lightning and
Yeah.
dying that way than you do on a flight.
Right.
And there's more automobile accidents that goes on. You die
Right.
faster from a car crash than you would from a plane crash.
Right.
All that good stuff I keep hearing, yet somehow I'm not convinced.
Right.
I'm still very, very nervous. I'm still very anxious. What could you tell me as I'll
Right.
tell you one of the things I'm very nervous about is I think of the amount of maintenance that has to go into. I'm like, how often do they actually maintain these planes?
It's unbelievable.
And it's
Yeah.
some lazy guy that's at the bottom that has to do something. He forgets to do it. And there's so many things that could go
Right.
wrong here that I feel like I just can't trust the system. I can't trust it
Yeah.
completely. That I feel like I'm gonna be safer. What could you tell me? Like
As
how
someone,
does-
it is 100% the safest thing you could do. Like the most dangerous thing is getting to the airport. Once you're there, but these are just statistics. I can tell you this for 3 hours, but it is truly the safest thing. Yeah, you are in an aluminum tube hurtling through space at 8, 9, 10 miles a minute. You're going around we demolish time and space. I mean, I can take off and take you to Johannesburg, in one flight, or I can take you to Hong Kong in one flight. It's an amazing thing that we do, but it is done to a level of safety that is it's astounding to me, even after 11 years of seeing it. I love my family. We just hosted some widows from Israel last Shabbos, and it was like a nightmare of mine to go and not come back to my wife and kids. Like I was obsessed with being, of course, I was going to get the mission done, being as safe as I could be as a Marine fighter pilot. Of course, I had to get the mission done. I get to the airlines and I realize that me, on the continuum of like cowboy safe dude, I was the safest dude in the squadron. I get to the airlines and I'm like, whoa, flying a single seat fighter, I was a complete cowboy. Like the levels of safety we have in the airlines, and there's a reason, the statistics back it up. You guys would be hard pressed to remember the last time an American airliner crashed. Can you remember one? It was in your lifetimes, but it was a long time ago. It is so, the statistics back it up. United Airlines alone flies 500,000 people a day. That's one airline. And sometimes more, sometimes less, but on average, 500,000 people a day fly on us safely, most of the time on time. The levels of safety are incredible. I'm honored to be a part of it. And that's what I would tell you. Have you tried vodka? Xanax? No. So that's what I would tell you. But for you to really understand, turbulence, which is most people ask me about, is the same as, some days you look at the ocean. Yesterday, the ocean was flat. It was glass. Some days you look at it and it's choppy. That's the same thing with air. Air is just a fluid like the ocean, right? So when you go through pockets of choppy air, you're going to bounce around a little bit. The plane is overbuilt like 20x stronger than it needs to be to get through any kind of turbulence. Have you ever heard of a plane losing a wing over turbulence? It just doesn't happen. Sometimes people bounce around.
But the wing looks so fragile when
Yeah.
it's flopping around. It looks like it's so feeble and
Right.
like it can be easily be
Well, that gets
sore
into
off or something.
like I'm not an engineer, but that gets into like tensile strength thing. Like something that bends is in some ways stronger than something that doesn't bend.
That's
It's
firm,
more brittle.
right.
So the aircraft is engineered it's incredibly engineered to do this mission. It's just perfect tool for the mission, and you're so safe up there. If you really want to, have you ever flown an airplane? Like gone and flown an
Flown
airplane?
one?
Yeah.
What do you mean flown one?
So you can go to an
Like been on the cockpit?
Yeah, you can go to any flight school at any airport, and I don't know, for 150 or 200 bucks, go on what they call discovery flights. And I've told this to a number of people. I don't know who's taking me up on it, but if you go actually fly an airplane, like the instructor will take you up there and he'll let you fly it.
What?
You'll see how simple it is. and you're going to bounce around a lot in a light airplane, a lot more than you do in a heavy airplane. Even a 737, which is one of our smaller airplanes at the airline, bounces around more than like the plane I fly now or the 777. The mass of the airplane, like a big ship going through the ocean doesn't feel the waves, whereas a little speedboat feels the waves.
Right.
So it's scary because you're not in control and you can't see the waves, and you're not, in the end, you're not in control.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to solve it, go fly an airplane and get at the controls and see how simple it is. If you really wanted to.
Ushy, you ready?
But in the end, it's
I have a
lack
hard
of
time going
control.
up an elevator. You know what I mean? Like if it's the
No, I get
highest
it.
floor. I'm serious. If I go to a hotel, I don't want
Yeah.
to stay in the highest floors. I am so scared of heights. I'm really paranoid of heights. I can't deal with it.
I don't
And
like
the
to call
plane
it-
is the
yeah.
pinnacle of the
Right.
heights for me. So it's really, really a challenge. But I
A little secret: pilots have an extreme respect for gravity. We're not afraid of heights because I can be in an airplane at like 8 miles high, and I'm totally fine. My plane I used to fly, I used to go 8 miles high with a view of a motorcycle. I'm totally fine. But if I'm next to the edge of a cliff I'm not tied in with rappelling gear, no thanks. On a tall building, no thanks. It's we understand gravity more than most people, and yeah, I think fear of heights is natural. I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And
So you're always calm. Like just another day in the
Yeah.
office. Like you never get nervous about anything. Like for a
the only thing that
moment.
stresses me out is inconveniencing the passengers. The other day, I didn't know how long the catering trucks were going to be. And hey, ops, what's up with the catering trucks? Oh yeah, they're at the other airplane. All right. How long is it going to take? I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's going to be 10 minutes or 30 minutes.
Right.
And what do I tell the people? That's the only thing that stresses me out. Like, in terms of operational stuff,
You got it down.
my
pat.
job is to make it so boring, to make this flight to London the most boring thing ever.
I'm curious if anything stresses you out. I mean, what do you stress over? What's your
My daughter being pissed off at me.
Not getting a kosher meal. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
On
yeah.
a real
Do
short.
you guys get the same meals we do? You get the same food?
I get business class kosher, which
Okay.
is really, it's amazing.
I feel like you deserve that.
No, it's amazing. The airline is amazing. I couldn't believe it. From day one, I selected business class kosher. And if they have, I've been called out to a flight 2 or 3 hours before the flight, and somehow they get me the business, but sometimes they don't.
Have you flown to Israel?
Yeah, I used to do it a lot.
Yeah, but October 7th changed that for you? I
No,
guess?
no, COVID.
Yeah, okay.
And I wanted to become a captain, so I had to come down an airplane to become a captain.
I see. So now you're domestic only?
No, I go to London, I go to Europe,
Oh, what's your favorite place to go to?
Tel Aviv.
Oh, nice.
I like Paris. I had to learn French for the Marine Corps, so I like to practice French.
Are you in and out, or do you like stick around wherever you go for like a day or two?
No, generally when you go to Europe, you're there for a day. So it's not a day, it's like a 24-hour period. So most of the nights, like now is when the flights start leaving. 5 or 6 flights start leaving at this time of day. So when you go to Europe, you get there in their morning, which is kind of very early in the morning for us.
Do you have a separate pilot voice?
No.
No?
The people you're hearing it. If
Like, how do you say it? If you start off your sentence, what does it sound like when you first welcome your
welcome
passenger?
aboard.
I know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, no, I want to know how it sounds. Yeah, what do you
welcome
say?
aboard. Welcome aboard United Flight XX.
Regular tone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the pilots are more talkative than others. Like some of them,
Yeah.
like they like tell you everything, they explain it to you nicely. Like, and some of them are very curt and direct. You only
I
hear his
introduced
voice,
my first
take off,
officer.
landing, that's it.
Yeah.
I tell you, welcome aboard. The flight time today. If there's any operational thing, like a
Yep.
wheels up time, I obviously cover that. I get the weather in for the destination. I introduce my first officer. I
Do you
tell him
usually
who's
know
flying.
who the first officer is
Yeah,
going?
yeah. Oh, I don't know who they are. I don't know. I know who they are by name, but you fly with different
But
people
you can
all the
meet
time.
them. You meet them for the first time
Yeah.
every time you go on.
Hour
Is that
before the flight.
awkward or is that
no?
like?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Because you automatically connect because you both like they're.
Yeah, the first couple minutes you're kind of hanging out. How's your day going? You get to know the person.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping only because of time, and we have to wrap up soon.
yeah.
But I have a couple more thoughts. You ever had to do an emergency landing?
in the Marine Corps. Actually, I did one here at United, but it was like nothing. It was I was a first officer, and the captain's like, "Do you think we should declare an emergency?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?"
What was it?
What's that?
You ever have to put
Yeah. Depending on the time of day, when the first,
What is the like your co-pilot? Did they ever like?
they love it. The last 2 guys I flew with, 2 guys ago, he flew with a Bible. So he asked me, what's a Jew? What Jews all about? So I said, hand me your Bible. And we're in the beginning of the Torah. So I saw it was actually incredible translation, but a Christian Bible. I started going through. I'm like, here's Abraham. He married Sarah. Here, I went through it. The guy I flew with the other day, and we're walking out. He's like, dude. He literally said, "Dude, you're an inspiration."
Wow.
Because we got to Chicago and it was too early to take off to Dobbin before I took off. I had to do it in Chicago, and hey, dude, go get coffee. Whatever, I gotta pray.
Wow, that's
So
beautiful.
He asked me like, it comes up a lot. Yeah, sometimes I say Psalms in him, and he like, for friends or who are ill or whatever. It comes up all the time. We always talk about where you were before. Sometimes I bring up that I was in the IDF, and they want to ask about that. So it comes up a lot, and you'll find that pilots are spiritual people. Like I think because we're so in the like you said, I think like we see sunrises that no one should ever be able to see. We see things that no one. Like I was going to London the other day, and I see a satellite. It's always cool to see a satellite tracking across the night sky. I'm like, oh, dude, check out the satellite. And then another one showed up, chasing it down, and then another one, and then another one, and then I think there were 20 of them. And we're like, dude, he's like, I think that's Starlink. So
it's just like hanging out in the air. You're just like driving.
We're going to London. We're halfway to London. And he's like, he got on the internet and he's like, yeah, Starlink launched tonight.
What did you see it as, a light?
They were like follow like ducks in a row.
But what did you see?
Yeah, it was a light.
The lights.
Because you could see satellites.
Yeah.
And a star that's moving. But there were like 20 of them in a perfect line. He's like, yeah, Starlink launched probably an hour before or whatever, 20 minutes. It launched from California, but it chased us down. And he did research on the layover, and he's like, yeah, that was Starlink, and it goes out like that, and then it splits up somehow and goes where it needs to go.
So cool.
But we see stuff like the Northern Lights.
That's the one thing that 9/11 took away. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to be able to go into the cockpit
100%.
during the flight and stand there and watch. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And you can't do it anymore.
I love bringing the kids up. We do it on the ground, but I remember doing that as a kid.
What do you appreciate more, sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset?
It's all great.
All
it's
of them?
all great. Yeah, I mean,
that's cool. You get to see it all.
I see it all, and
the concept of moon rising and the moon setting.
What I love is when the moon's rising and the sun's setting.
Oh yeah,
at the same time.
You're seeing it both sides of the world.
I've had two sunsets in one day a few times. The sunset, like in the Marine Corps, you have to get nighttime. Like you had to log nighttime a certain amount, so we'd have to fly at night. So we go out there and be waiting for the sun to set. So the sun sets, and then you take off right after sunset. And when you gain elevation, you see the sun again.
That's amazing.
Stuff like that. Like I could go on and on.
I have to tell you, this has been uplifting, inspiring, and no
pun intended.
It's just been such a pleasure getting to know you. I feel like I made a friend today, and I'm Thanks, guys. Happy that you were able to come here. Thank you again, Chaim, for recommending us that we get together.
Shout out to
part
Chaim
of it.
And Navut.
Yeah, thank you, Chaim and Navut. Exactly. Navut, how they say it in the Hebrew way, they're taking lone soldiers and giving them, family feeling everywhere they go around the United States. A camaraderie, exactly. A feeling of family, and that's beautiful. So shout out to you guys. I just joined a Tefillin chat a few months ago, and Michael Rappaport recently joined, and he put himself out there and showing that he's putting on tefillin every day.
The actor.
Yeah. I have to ask you to please send me a selfie every once in a while from the cockpit. I'm going to put it on that chat and show people, and I think it'll be inspiring for others.
Or maybe he could join that chat, Michael.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to join the chats that are going to. It's all day long. You're a busy guy.
You can mute it.
But definitely.
You gotta use your phone while you're.
No.
Oh, you also don't have a phone?
No.
On the cockpit?
Yeah, we
so
shut
you're just
it
as
off.
bored as us. Are you watching movies?
No.
So you're just talking to the co-pilot?
We talk, you hang out. It's actually like a podcast. I mean, we sit there.
They should do a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh wow! What a great
it's
idea! Somebody should do it.
And that's part of the fun of like flying with a new guy all the time. Like 3 weeks ago, I flew with a guy that had flown 2 or 3 times. But most of the time, it's a new guy, and you get to know him, and you feel like you make a friend. Like you got to trust the guy.
Yeah, sure.
To begin with, and then you go on you do a great. What is maybe routine for us in this day and age, but it's not routine. It's an incredible feeling of accomplishment to accomplish that mission.
Sure.
To get the mission, to get people to London, to wherever you're going.
I have to ask you before I let you go. There's 2 things I want to ask you, but first of all, you have such an amazing history and experience from all different walks of life, and you've gone through everything while being spiritual and finding, orthodoxy, and then from conservative. So much that you went through in terms of also a job and a career and a path. What would your message be to the young people that are the young generation?
So I'm involved in the mentoring thing at Chabad, and I told these guys the other day, do what you love. It's a blessing to do that. Put the hard yards in, figuring out what you love, and then don't give up. Once you figure that out, you know, they say like, how do you chop down a tree? Well, you spend a lot of time sharpening the axe and then you start chopping down the tree. Well, just figure out what you love and be very sure of that, and then everything else falls into place.
That's beautiful.
Love that.
I appreciate that. You know, we also ask you, I don't know if you remember, that we're going to ask you to pick a candidate who you think would be a good guest on the podcast. So I have to ask you that before you go. But do you have any questions for us before we let you go?
Not at all. It's been amazing. Thank you for an incredible experience. My first time on one of these things. People have said a number of times I should do it, and I don't look for it, but somehow it happened. And
we're going to make you sign an exclusivity, by the way.
Exactly. I don't want to share you with anybody. And we need to also do part 2, Michael.
I love it.
We got to get to this whole like
on a cockpit.
Anytime.
There's so much stuff.
Anytime. I love it.
So who would you recommend?
Are you allowed to bring a guest into the cockpit if you wanted to?
Absolutely. Yeah. Not while we're flying, but on the ground I do it all the time.
Can we do a podcast there? That would be interesting.
One of my first flight to Tel Aviv, Gal Gadot, was on the way back.
Ask you what kind of celebrities he had.
Yeah, it's just one of the few. I have a few others, but so I went to Tel Aviv on the 777 the first time I went there, and so this is the flight back, and I'm doing my stuff in the cockpit, and one of the flight attendants came up and said, "Hey, Gal Gadot's in 1K or whatever that seat was," and I didn't know the layout of the seat, so I looked on the app and I said, "Oh, I just been talking to her daughter. I just been talking to her." Because I went out to go to the bathroom whatever before we took off, and I said there was this like 10, 12-year-old girl in first class right there, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to come check out the cockpit?" And she's like, "No." And her mom's like, "Go." And it was Gal Gadot. I didn't realize it, and I said, "Don't worry about it." You know, Gal Gadot's like, "Go," and then she's like, "I'm sorry, she's shy." You know, I'm like, if she changes her mind when we land, if she wants, please come on up, and So we have a bunk in that plane, which is right over first class. So I got home and the bunk, it was right over where Gal Gadot was sitting. So I was like, you take like a 6-hour nap coming back from Tel Aviv. So I got back and I was like, honey, I slept on top of Gal Gadot last night. But
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I don't know why that came up, but
it doesn't have to come for any reason. That story is worthwhile.
What would you ask?
It's a podcast in of itself.
No,
we're saying to do a podcast on the cockpit that we can go on and do.
Yeah.
But I was asking you essentially, who would you recommend that would
So I
fill a
threatened
seat?
my wife last night.
Yeah.
That I was going to recommend her.
Ooh.
She's like, forget about it. Obviously, I thought about my kids. I mean, there's American heroes out there that people don't know about, and those are the kids, the people that are serving. You know, I thought about people I know who are fighting now in Israel, not just in Gaza, but people I've met. I went skiing with wounded Israeli guys in France last year, and met some incredible people who. There's just so many people out there, but my rabbi, and I don't know if you've had a Lubavitch Chabad guy on, but he's a rock star in that world.
What's his name?
Label Shapiro.
Label
He'd be
Shapiro.
amazing. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about what we're doing down in Chabad of the Jersey Shore, but it's incredible. And
Tell us.
I call it. I lived in Jerusalem for a year at Hebrew University, and I call Long Branch Jerusalem on the Jersey Shore. We have built. Like when I take the 15 or 20 minute drive from Fairhaven to Long Branch, it's better than a flight to Israel to go to Jerusalem for Shabbat. Yeah. It's an amazing place, and he's built an incredible community, and he's really brought so many aspects of being Torah observant to a place in New Jersey where I never even thought it possible, and he's made it so accessible and so. And he and his wife, obviously, Chani, and we have 3 rabbis now and their wives. It's an incredible community, but Label would be probably my top choice too.
Okay, I appreciate it. We're going to ask you I'm not going to ask you to call him now because it's long. Sunday. For those of you that don't know, we came in on Sunday for this. We had to, you fly, so you don't know one day to the next when you're not here.
Call. I might have to fly tomorrow.
Right, and that's why we had to pick today. So thank you for you, your daughter, your whole family for allowing this. I know it was a family decision, so we really appreciate it. Yeah. And we appreciate all our listeners, our subscribers, our comments. And of course, thank you to the Prime Source production team. If you're looking for savings in the healthcare space, contact one of us and we will help you run your building more efficiently. That's what we do for a living. Awesome. Again, appreciate everyone being involved. Thank you so much for being here. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was awesome.